The night is quiet again, the kind of quiet that only comes when the rain has been falling for hours. Tonight, I have a few stories for you. Stories about empty roads, old houses, and the strange sounds that drift through the walls when the world is half asleep. So settle in, let the rain take over, and listen. Story 1. The window on the stairwell. The first time I saw him in the stairwell window, I thought someone was playing a prank. Not a funny one either. The kind that makes you check the locks twice before bed and wonder who the hell has that much time on their hands. But that came later, after I'd seen him enough times to realize he wasn't going anywhere. My name's Tom. I'm 34, teach history at Roosevelt High, and up until last November, I would have told you ghosts were complete bullshit. The kind of stories people tell themselves because they can't accept that sometimes bad things just happen for no reason. No deeper meaning, no cosmic justice, just random chance and human error. Jennifer, my wife, used to tease me about it. Said I was too logical, too grounded, that I needed to let myself believe in something unexplainable once in a while. She's 7 months pregnant now, was 6 months when this all started, and her whole worldview shifted to this magical place where everything means something and signs are everywhere. Pregnant women and their nesting instincts, I guess. We'd moved into the Whitmore apartments in September. 5th floor, 2-bedroom, rent stabilized because the building was old and the landlord was cheap. Jennifer insisted we needed to be in this neighborhood. Good schools, safe streets, close to the park. She was already planning our kids' entire childhood before we'd even finished unpacking. The building itself was one of those pre-war walk-ups, built sometime in the 1920s. Ornate molding, high ceilings, radiators that clanked like someone was hitting them with a wrench. The elevator worked about half the time, which Jennifer hated, but I didn't mind. My doctor had been on me about my blood pressure, said I needed more exercise, so I took the stairs most days anyway. That's how I started noticing the window. It was on the 3rd floor landing, right where the stairs turned. Big thing, probably 4 feet tall, original wavy glass that distorted everything slightly. During the day, it looked out onto the interior courtyard, a concrete square with a few dead plants and a bike rack nobody used. At night, with the courtyard lights off, it was just black glass that reflected whatever was in the stairwell. I'd pass it twice a day, morning around 6:30, heading to school when it was still dark, evening around 4 o'clock, coming home while there was still some light. Never paid much attention to it those first couple months. Just another architectural detail in an old building full of them. The morning of November 18th, I was running late. Jennifer had been up half the night with back pain, and I'd stayed up with her, rubbing her lower back and Googling whether we should go to the hospital. We didn't. Just normal pregnancy stuff, apparently, but it meant I'd overslept my alarm. I was rushing down the stairs, trying to calculate if I could still grab coffee before first period, when I caught movement in my peripheral vision at the 3rd floor landing. Someone was standing in the window. I stopped, turned to look. It was my reflection, obviously. Same brown jacket, same messenger bag over my shoulder, same slightly too long hair I kept meaning to get cut. I must have seen my own reflection in that window 100 times by then. But something made me pause. The reflection was staring back at me, not moving, not mimicking my movements the way reflections do. Just standing there in the dark glass, perfectly still, watching me with an intensity that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I shifted my weight. The reflection didn't move. I raised my hand halfway, an awkward half wave I immediately felt stupid for doing. The reflection raised its hand, waved back, but a second too late, like there was lag in the connection. Jesus, I muttered, shaking my head. Lack of sleep was making me see things. Obviously I'd waved and my reflection waved back at the exact same time. That's how mirrors work, Tom. That's how physics works. I turned and kept walking down the stairs, already dismissing it. Stupid to even let it rattle me. I had a full day of teaching ahead and no time for my brain to manufacture mysteries out of wavy glass and exhaustion. That was the first time. For the next few days, I didn't think about it. Had too much on my plate. Midterms to grade, Jennifer's doctor appointments, trying to finish painting the nursery before the baby came. Life was busy enough without fixating on a weird moment in a stairwell. But then it happened again. November 22nd, morning. Same routine, same rush out the door. I hit the third floor landing, and there he was in the window. My reflection, standing there waiting. This time, I stopped deliberately, looked right at it. The reflection looked back. Same jacket, same bag, but something was different. I couldn't put my finger on what. The face looked older, maybe, more tired. Hard to tell with the wavy glass distorting everything. I waved. The reflection waved back, perfectly synchronized this time. "See," I said out loud to the empty stairwell. "Normal reflection. You're losing it, Tom." Kept walking, pushed it out of my mind. But it nagged at me all day during classes. Between third and fourth period, I actually Googled mirror delay on my phone. Found articles about the speed of light, about how technically there's an infinitesimal delay in any reflection, but nothing the human eye could perceive. Nothing about reflections that stare at you. The weekend came and went. Jennifer's sister visited. We assembled a crib. I graded papers while half watching a football game. Normal domestic life. The stairwell window didn't cross my mind once. Monday morning, I saw him again, and this time, there was no question something was wrong. The reflection looked older. Not drastically, but noticeably. Lines around the eyes I didn't have. A harder set to the jaw. Maybe a few more gray hairs at the temples, though in the pre-dawn light, it was hard to be sure. I stopped on the landing, set my bag down, took out my phone, turned on the flashlight, shined it at my own face, checked my reflection in the phone's black screen. Normal. Same face I'd been shaving for 15 years. Looked back at the window. The reflection had those lines, those gray hairs, that weathered look I definitely didn't see in my bathroom mirror every morning. The glass is old, I said to myself. It warps things, makes people look different. But I didn't believe it. The glass warped slightly, sure, but it didn't add years to your face. I pulled out my phone again, opened the camera, held it up like I was going to take a selfie with the window behind me. The reflection in the window raised its phone too, matching my movement. Took the photo, looked at it. In the image, the window behind me showed my reflection perfectly normal. Same age, same face. No extra lines, no gray hair. Just me, 34 years old, looking tired, because my pregnant wife kept me up at night. I looked back at the actual window. The reflection still looked older. "What the hell?" I whispered. The reflection's mouth moved, mouthed the same words. "What the hell?" But I hadn't said it out loud. I'd whispered it, and the reflection mouthed it after I did, not simultaneously. My heart started beating faster. This was wrong. This was all wrong. I grabbed my bag and walked down the stairs quickly, not quite running, but close. Didn't look back at the window. Couldn't. All day at school, I kept thinking about it. Tried to focus on my lessons. We were covering the Industrial Revolution, usually one of my favorite units. But my mind kept drifting back to that face in the glass. Those lines that shouldn't be there. During lunch, I did something I normally wouldn't. I Googled "seeing older version of yourself." Bad idea. Really bad idea. The results were full of folklore and superstition. Doppelgangers as death omens. Seeing your future self as a warning. Old wives' tales about mirrors showing you your fate. Most of it was from paranormal websites with names like trueghoststories.net and unexplainedmysteries.com. I closed the browser, feeling stupid for even looking. I was a history teacher. I dealt in facts, primary sources, documented evidence, not ghost stories and internet conspiracy theories. But I took the elevator home that afternoon. Told myself it was because I was tired, not because I was avoiding the stairwell. The elevator broke down the next morning. Of course it did. The super had a sign up, "Out of order, use stairs, sorry for inconvenience." I stood in the lobby for a full minute, staring at that sign. Jennifer had already left for her prenatal yoga class. The building was quiet, just the distant sound of someone's TV through the walls and the ever-present hiss of the radiators. "It's just a window," I said to no one. "Just glass. Just a reflection." I climbed the stairs, hit the third-floor landing. The window was there, waiting. So was he. The reflection looked 10 years older than me now, maybe more. The gray hair was unmistakable, spreading from the temples across the sides, deep lines carved into the forehead, around the mouth. The kind of weathering you get from stress, from lack of sleep, from life beating you down year after year. I was looking at myself at 45, maybe 50, in a window that should only show me now. I stepped closer. The reflection stepped closer. We were maybe a foot apart now, just the glass between us. Up close, I could see more details. The eyes looked hollow, haunted. The skin had a grayish tint, unhealthy. This wasn't just aging. This was deterioration. "Who are you?" I asked out loud. The reflection's mouth moved, mouthed back. "Who are you? Number. Wait." Not mouthing my words, mouthing different words. I watched carefully. The reflection's lips moved deliberately, slowly, like it wanted me to understand. "Help. Me." I stepped back. The reflection stepped back. "You're not real," I said. "You're not real. This is stress. This is lack of sleep. This is..." The reflection put its hand up to the glass, palm flat against the window from the inside. From the inside. Reflections don't appear on the inside of glass. They appear on the surface. Basic optics, basic physics. But I could see the hand was behind the glass, in the darkness of the courtyard, which was impossible. There was nothing in that courtyard except concrete and dead plants. I turned and ran up the rest of the stairs to my apartment, hands shaking as I unlocked the door, slammed it behind me, threw the deadbolt. Jennifer was back from yoga, making tea in the kitchen. "Hey, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I almost laughed, almost told her, but what would I say? That I was seeing an older version of myself in the stairwell window, that my reflection was asking for help? She'd think I was having a breakdown. Hell, maybe I was. "Just a rough morning," I said. "Long day ahead." She kissed my cheek, told me to take it easy, that I'd been working too hard. I nodded, smiled, pretended everything was fine. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed next to Jennifer, listening to her breathe, feeling the baby kick against my hand on her belly. Normal life, safe life, real life, and somewhere 5 floors below us on that third-floor landing, something that looked like me was standing in a window, aging, deteriorating, asking for help. I had to know what it meant. The next morning, I went to the building office before school. The super, a guy named Rodrigo, was eating a breakfast sandwich at his desk. "Hey Tom, what can I do for you?" "Quick question about the building history. You know anything about the third-floor landing? That big window?" He shrugged. "Original to the building, I think. Why, is it broken?" "No, just curious. Has anyone ever mentioned anything weird about it?" Rodrigo gave me a look. "Weird how?" I felt stupid asking. "Never mind. It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was eating at me. All through my classes that day, I kept thinking about that hand pressed against the glass from the inside. About the mouth-forming words, "Help me." During my free period, I did what I should have done from the start. Real research, the kind I taught my students to do, primary sources, verifiable records, documented history. I started with the building itself, the Whitmore Apartments, built 1924. I found old newspaper archives, city records, building permits. Went through decades of information, looking for anything unusual. Deaths, accidents, crimes. Found it in a 1998 article from the local paper. Man found dead in Whitmore Apartments. My blood went cold as I read. Thomas Brandt, 42 years old, high school teacher at Jefferson High, found dead in his fifth-floor apartment by building management after neighbors complained about a smell. Cause of death: carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty heating system. Lived alone. Body had been there for approximately 4 days before discovery. Thomas, same first name as me, teacher, same profession. Fifth floor, same floor I lived on. I read the article 3 more times, hands shaking slightly. The details got worse with each reading. He'd been experiencing headaches, nausea, fatigue for weeks before his death. Neighbors said he looked sick, exhausted. He'd told several people he thought it was just stress from work. By the time they found him, the article said carbon monoxide levels in the apartment were dangerously high. The heating system had a cracked pipe that had been leaking for months. I sat at my desk in the empty classroom, staring at the screen, the aged reflection, the deterioration. It wasn't showing me the future. It was showing me what Thomas Brandt looked like as he died, and I was living in his apartment. I called Jennifer immediately. "Hey, don't freak out, but I need you to leave the apartment today." "What?" "Tom, what's wrong?" "Just trust me. Go stay with your sister for a few days. I'll explain everything, but I need you out of there." "You're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. But please, just pack a bag and go. Take the elevator. Don't use the stairs." She agreed, confused and worried, but she agreed. I could hear it in her voice. She thought I was losing it. Maybe I was, but I wasn't taking chances. Not with her, not with the baby. I left school early, told them I was sick. Wasn't even a lie. My stomach was churning, my head pounding. How long had I been breathing carbon monoxide? The symptoms Thomas Brandt had: headaches, nausea, fatigue. I'd had all of them. Blamed it on stress, on lack of sleep, on Jennifer's pregnancy anxiety keeping me up at night. I took a cab home, couldn't risk the subway. Felt paranoid, irrational, but I didn't care. Got to the building around 2 p.m. The elevator was still broken. I stared at the stairs, had to face it, had to see, climbed slowly, hit the 3rd-floor landing. The reflection was waiting. He looked ancient now, 70s, maybe 80s, barely recognizable as human. Skin like paper, gray and thin, eyes sunken deep into the skull, hair completely white, wispy and sparse. This was death. This was what the carbon monoxide had done to Thomas Brandt in those final days, weeks, months. The slow deterioration, the gradual poisoning, the body shutting down bit by bit while his mind stayed trapped inside, aware of what was happening, but unable to stop it. I walked up to the window, stood inches from the glass. The reflection stared back at me with those hollow eyes. "I know who you are," I said. "Thomas Brandt. You died here in 1998. The reflection's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Leave." I could barely read the word on those thin gray lips, but I understood. "Leave, while you can." "I will," I said. "We will. I promise." I couldn't. The hand pressed against the glass again, fingers spread wide. And for just a moment I saw it clearly. Not my hand, not my reflection. An older man's hand, weathered and spotted with age that came too soon. I tried to warn myself. The words formed slowly, laboriously. Couldn't get out in time. My throat tightened. "I understand. Thank you. Thank you for showing me." The reflection nodded, just once. A tiny movement of that withered head. Then it smiled, barely, a sad, exhausted smile, and faded. Not dramatically, not like a movie ghost dissolving into nothing. Just faded, like someone turning down the opacity until nothing remained but the empty courtyard darkness and my own normal reflection in the glass. I stood there for a long moment, staring at myself. 34 years old. Alive. Still alive. I pulled out my phone, called 911. I need the fire department at the Whitmore Apartments, 447 Euclid Avenue, 5th floor, apartment 5C. Suspected carbon monoxide leak. My wife is pregnant. She's not in the apartment now, but I need someone here immediately. The operator took my information, said units were on the way. I didn't go back upstairs, waited in the lobby until I heard the sirens. The fire department arrived within 10 minutes. 3 firefighters in full gear, carrying detection equipment. They took it seriously. Carbon monoxide was nothing to mess with, the captain told me. They went upstairs. I waited. 15 minutes later, they came back down. The captain's face was grim. You called just in time. CO levels in that apartment are at 180 parts per million. That's dangerous. Another week or 2 of exposure, especially while sleeping. He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The heating system? I asked. Cracked pipe in the wall. Old building. Old infrastructure. Landlord's going to have some violations to answer for. They evacuated the entire 5th floor. Brought in more equipment. Tested every apartment. Mine was the worst, but 2 others showed elevated levels too. The landlord arrived, furious and defensive, until the fire captain showed him the readings and mentioned lawyers. Jennifer came home that evening, to her sister's place where I'd told her to meet me. I explained everything, the reflection, the research, Thomas Brandt, the carbon monoxide. She held me for a long time. Then she cried. Then she got angry at the landlord, at the building, at me for not saying something sooner. But we were alive. We were safe. That's what mattered. The building paid to relocate us temporarily. A hotel suite across town while they fixed the heating system in the entire building. Not just our floor. Turned out the problem was widespread. Decades of neglect compounding into a death trap. Jennifer and I spent 2 weeks there. 2 weeks of sleeping better than we had in months. No headaches, no nausea, no exhaustion that we'd blamed on everything else. We were dying, Jennifer said one night, her hand on her belly. All 3 of us, and we didn't even know. I didn't tell her the full story. Not about the reflection aging, deteriorating, showing me exactly what was happening to us in slow motion. She knew about Thomas Brandt, about the research I'd done. That was enough. The building inspector's report came back. The heating system was a disaster. Cracked pipes, faulty ventilation, carbon monoxide leaking into multiple apartments for months, maybe years. Our apartment, Thomas Brandt's old apartment, had the worst of it. The crack in our pipe was directly behind the bedroom wall. We'd been sleeping in poison every night. The landlord faced multiple violations, fines, lawsuits from other tenants. We broke our lease. He didn't fight it. Couldn't really, not after nearly killing a pregnant woman. We found a new place by the end of December, garden-level apartment in a newer building, more expensive but safer. Carbon monoxide detectors in every room. We checked them obsessively. Before we left the Whitmore for good, I did something I had to do. I went back to the 3rd floor landing one last time. Middle of the afternoon, sunlight streaming through the window. The courtyard looked different in daylight, shabby but ordinary, just a neglected urban space with cracked concrete and winter-dead weeds. I stood in front of the window, looked at my reflection. Just me, 34 years old, tired but healthy, alive. Thank you, I said quietly. I don't know if you can hear me. But thank you. You saved us. All 3 of us. No response. Just glass and light and my own face looking back. I don't know if he was still there, if he'd moved on, found peace. Whatever happens to ghosts when their work is done. I'd like to think he had. That warning me, saving me, had freed him somehow. But I'll never know for sure. What I do know is this. Thomas Brandt died alone in that apartment 26 years ago, slowly poisoned, probably aware something was wrong, but unable to figure out what. No one checked on him. No one noticed until it was too late. He couldn't save himself, but he could save me. Our daughter was born in March, healthy, perfect, screaming her lungs out the moment she entered the world. We named her Emma. Sometimes when I'm holding her, when she's asleep in my arms and the apartment is quiet, I think about how close we came. How if I'd ignored that reflection for another week, another month, we might not have made it. Jennifer might not have made it. Emma might never have been born. The doctors confirmed it later. The levels of carbon monoxide we'd been exposed to, especially Jennifer, who was home more than I was, could have caused serious complications. Miscarriage, stillbirth, developmental problems. We got lucky, got out in time, because a dead man showed me what was happening. I researched Thomas Brandt more after we moved out. Found his obituary, some old yearbook photos from Jefferson High where he taught. He looked like a normal guy, smiled in the photos, had a whole life that got cut short by something invisible and odorless and entirely preventable. No family mentioned in the obituary, no wife, no kids. Just survived by colleagues and friends. The kind of lonely death where nobody notices you're gone until the smell gets bad. I think about that a lot, about how he tried to warn himself somehow from beyond whatever comes after, how he couldn't save himself but saw a chance to save someone else, someone in his apartment, someone with his name, someone with everything he'd lost. Jennifer thinks I'm obsessing. She's probably right, but I can't help it. I still teach history at Roosevelt, still deal in facts and documented evidence. But now when my students ask about ghosts or the supernatural, I don't dismiss it outright like I used to. I tell them the world is bigger and stranger than we like to admit, that sometimes the dead leave messages for the living if we're paying attention. They think I'm being metaphorical. I let them think that. We installed carbon monoxide detectors in every room of our new apartment. I check them weekly, test the batteries, make sure they're working. Jennifer teases me about it, but she doesn't stop me. She knows why. I don't walk past mirrors the same way anymore. Don't dismiss reflections as just physics and light. I look. I pay attention. Because sometimes what you see isn't just yourself. It's a warning, a message, a lifeline thrown across time and death. To this day, I wonder if Thomas Brandt is still in that stairwell window. If he's waiting for the next person who moves into apartment 5C, ready to show them what I saw, ready to save them like he saved us. Or maybe he's gone now. Maybe warning me was enough. Maybe he finally got to rest. I hope he did. I really do, because he earned it. Every year on the anniversary of the day I called 911, December 3rd, I light a candle. Jennifer knows what it's for. She doesn't ask questions anymore. Just lights one, too, and we stand there in our safe apartment with our healthy daughter, and we remember the man who died so we could live. Thomas Brandt never got to be a father, never got to hold his own child, never got to experience this life we have now. But in a way, he gave us Emma, gave us this chance, this future. I teach my students about history, about learning from the past so we don't repeat mistakes. But Thomas Brandt taught me something deeper, that the past isn't always behind us. Sometimes it reaches forward, tries to change what comes next. Sometimes the dead protect the living. If you ever see something that doesn't make sense, a reflection that's wrong, a warning that seems impossible, a message from someone who shouldn't be there, don't ignore it. Don't rationalize it away. Don't tell yourself it's stress or lack of sleep or your imagination. Pay attention, look closer, trust that crawling feeling on the back of your neck, because sometimes that's all that stands between you and becoming another name in an obituary, another person who ignored the warnings until it was too late. I was a skeptic. I believed in facts, in evidence, in rational explanations for everything. I still do, mostly. But I also believe in ghosts now, the kind that don't haunt you, they save you. Thomas Brandt saved my life, saved my wife, saved my daughter who wasn't even born yet. And I'll never forget the man in the window who showed me my death so I could choose to live instead. Story 2, the apartment that hummed. I found the apartment through Marcus, another cellist I'd worked with in the symphony. He knew I was looking for something cheap, somewhere I could practice without complaints. a place to figure out what came next after I'd walked away from the only career I'd ever known. My buddy's got a corner unit, he told me over coffee. 4th floor, downtown arts district. Landlord's desperate because the building's half empty, renovations on the other floors. He's offering 3 months at half rent if you sign a year lease. I should have asked why it was empty. Should have wondered what kind of renovations required evacuating an entire building except for 3 units. But I was broke, burned out, and tired of sleeping on my sister's couch while my cello took up half her living room. The apartment was perfect, or it seemed perfect. High ceilings, original hardwood floors that creaked in that old building way, tall windows that let in winter light. The corner unit meant 2 exposures, less noise from neighbors, and the space, enough room for my cello, my music stand, my small life condensed into 800 square feet. But what sold me was the sound. I played a few notes during the walkthrough, just to test it, drew my bow across the strings, let a single note ring out. The sound bloomed in that room, resonant and full, hanging in the air longer than it should have. Perfect acoustics, the kind you pay thousands extra for in newer buildings. "I'll take it," I said, before the landlord finished showing me the bedroom. He seemed relieved. Too relieved, maybe, but I wasn't paying attention. I was already imagining how my practice sessions would sound in this space, how I could finally hear myself properly after months of muting my playing in cramped apartments with paper-thin walls. I moved in on January 9th. 6 boxes of belongings, my cello, a futon, and a folding table. That was it. Everything else from my old life. The life where I played second cello in a symphony orchestra, where I had a routine and a paycheck and thought I knew who I was, I'd left behind. My mom called that first night, worried. She'd been worried since I quit the orchestra 3 months earlier, couldn't understand why I'd throw away stability. "You worked so hard to get that position," she kept saying, like I didn't know, like I hadn't spent 12 years fighting for it. "The apartment's great," I told her, pacing the empty living room. "Really great acoustics. I can finally practice without someone banging on the ceiling. You're alone in that big building. There are other tenants. 2 other units occupied." I didn't mention how I rarely saw them, how the hallways stayed dark and silent even during evening hours. "Just be careful, Sophia, and call me if you need anything." I promised I would. Hung up and stood in the middle of my new space listening to the silence. Except it wasn't quite silent. Old buildings never are. The radiator clanked softly, heating pipes expanding and contracting with temperature changes, a rhythm almost musical in its irregularity. The refrigerator hummed its usual mechanical drone. Wind rattled the windows from the street 4 floors below. Normal sounds, the ambient noise of any apartment. I practiced for 2 hours that night, working through pieces I'd neglected during my orchestra days. Scales, etudes, sections from the Bach suites. The cello sounded beautiful, the room responding to every note like it was designed for this. My bow work felt cleaner, my intonation sharper. This was exactly what I needed. I slept well that first night, better than I had in months. The insomnia that had plagued me during my final year in the orchestra, lying awake at 3 a.m., mind racing with anxiety about wrong notes and section dynamics and whether I'd ever be more than second chair, didn't show up. The second night was the same, and the third, fourth, fifth. 5 nights of deep, dreamless sleep. 5 days of productive practice, feeling creative again, remembering why I fell in love with music in the first place. 5 days of thinking I'd made the right choice, that this apartment was exactly what I needed to reset, to find myself again. The humming started on my 6th night there, so faint at first I thought I was imagining it. I woke up around 2 in the morning. Not suddenly, not from a nightmare, just a slow drift back to consciousness, pulled from sleep by something I couldn't quite identify. Lay there in the darkness, listening. The usual sounds were there. Radiator, refrigerator, wind outside. But underneath them, barely audible, something else. A low hum, distant, muffled, like someone in another apartment had left music playing, but not quite music. Just a single sustained note vibrating through the walls. I waited for it to stop, figured someone was watching TV too loud or had fallen asleep with something on. It would end soon. It didn't. After 20 minutes of lying there, the sound still present, I got up, walked through the apartment in my pajamas, trying to locate the source. Pressed my ear against the wall shared with the neighboring unit. Nothing. Checked the heating vents. Nothing. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Old building, I muttered to myself. Pipes. Ventilation system. Something mechanical. I went back to bed, pulled the pillow over my head. Eventually, exhausted, I fell back asleep. Morning came, and the sound was gone. I'd almost convinced myself I'd dreamed it by the time I had my coffee. Spent the day practicing, teaching 2 private students via video call, trying to build some kind of income now that I wasn't drawing an orchestra salary. That night, the humming returned. Same time, around 2 a.m. Same low, sustained note. I was more awake this time, more aware, listened carefully, trying to analyze what I was hearing. The pitch was consistent, steady. My brain automatically identified it. B flat, maybe 466 hertz. The frequency so precise it was almost unnatural. No variation, no warble, just that single perfect note hanging in the air for hours. I tried earplugs, could still hear it. Felt it, more than heard it. A vibration that seemed to pass right through the foam and into my skull. By 5 a.m., it had faded. I got maybe 3 hours of sleep. 3rd night, same thing. 4th night, same thing. By the end of the 2nd week, it was happening every single night without fail. The hum would start around 2 a.m., last until dawn, then disappear completely. During the day, nothing. The apartment was quiet, peaceful, exactly what I'd signed up for. But at night, that sound returned like clockwork. I called the landlord, left a message about strange noises, asked if there was maintenance happening on other floors at night. He called back 2 days later. Maintenance only works during the day, 9 to 5. You sure you're hearing something? I'm positive. It's every night. A humming sound, like machinery running. He sighed. I'll send someone to check the HVAC system. Probably just the heating cycling on. The maintenance guy came on a Tuesday afternoon, walked through my apartment with a clipboard, checked vents and pipes and the furnace in the basement. Came back up shaking his head. Everything looks fine. System's running normally. You say you hear this at night? Every night, around 2 a.m. He gave me a look. Not quite skeptical, but close. Could be traffic noise, streets busy, or construction on another building. Sound travels weird in these old places. You tune it out after a while. I'm a musician. I don't tune sounds out. Well, I don't know what to tell you. There's nothing wrong with the building mechanically. After he left, I felt stupid, paranoid, like I was being difficult over nothing, the kind of tenant landlords complain about. But that night, the humming came back. And I knew, absolutely knew. It wasn't traffic or construction or my imagination. I started recording it, pulled out my phone at 2 a.m., hit record, held it up to the wall, let it capture 5 minutes of audio, played it back in the morning. The recording was mostly silence. A faint background hum that could have been anything, ambient noise, electronics, compression artifacts. Nothing conclusive. Nothing I could point to and say, see, this is what I'm hearing. But when I was in the apartment at night, it was unmistakable. I set up my Cello Tuner app, the kind that measures precise frequencies for tuning instruments. Opened it at 2 a.m. when the humming started. Let it analyze the sound. B flat, 466.16 hertz, perfect pitch. The reading stayed locked on that frequency, never wavering, not even by a fraction of a hertz. No HVAC system maintains that level of precision. No machinery holds a note that perfectly. This was something else. My practice session started falling apart. I'd be working through a piece and realize I'd drifted off key, pulled toward B flat without meaning to. The note was stuck in my head, playing on repeat, even during the day when the humming wasn't there. Or was it always there? Had I just stopped noticing it in daylight? The way you stop seeing furniture after you've lived somewhere long enough. I found myself humming it, unconsciously, while making coffee, while grading student assignments, while walking to the corner store. That same low note vibrating in my throat. The acoustics that had seemed so perfect when I moved in now felt wrong. Sounds lingered too long, echoing strangely in the empty space. I'd play a note on my cello, and the resonance would continue after I lifted the bow, just for a second, just barely, but enough to notice. It's the room, I told myself. The shape of it. Natural reverb. That's why the acoustics are so good. But I'd played in concert halls, in recording studios, in spaces designed specifically for sound. This was different. This felt deliberate, engineered, like the room itself was responding to the music instead of just reflecting it. The headaches started in week 3. Pressure behind my eyes, a tightness in my skull that painkillers barely touched. My doctor said it was tension, stress, maybe residual burnout from leaving the orchestra. Prescribed me something for anxiety. I didn't tell her about the humming, didn't want to sound crazy. But the sound was affecting me physically. I could feel vibrations in my chest even during the day, even when the hum wasn't there. Like my body had learned the frequency and couldn't let it go. Sleep became impossible. I'd lie awake from 2 a.m. to dawn, that sound boring into my brain, feeling it in my bones. Started missing teaching sessions because I couldn't focus. Canceled a gig because I knew I wasn't capable of performing. Marcus called, worried. "You sound terrible, Soph. Are you eating? Sleeping?" The apartment makes noise at night. All apartments make noise. Not like this. Maybe you should move. Break the lease. It's not worth making yourself sick over. But I couldn't afford to break the lease. Couldn't afford the deposit on a new place. And part of me, the stubborn, analytical part that had studied music theory and acoustics, needed to understand what was happening. One night, listening to the hum in the darkness, I realized something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just one note. There were harmonics, overtones, the complex layering that comes from a human voice, not a machine. I sat up in bed, listening more carefully than I ever had, focused on the texture of the sound. Underneath the main B flat, there were other frequencies. Not random, structured, like a chord, but dissonant, wrong, the intervals clashing in ways that made my teeth ache. And when I really listened, when I let myself hear what I'd been trying to ignore, I could almost make out variations. Not quite voices, but close. Like multiple people humming in unison, their pitches slightly off from each other, creating that unsettling dissonance. I got out of bed, walked to the living room wall, put my hand flat against it. The wall was vibrating, subtle, almost imperceptible, but there, a pulse, a rhythm, in, out, like breathing. I stopped sleeping in the bedroom, started camping on the couch with my laptop, researching through the night while the humming filled the apartment around me. Building humming sounds, low-frequency noise apartment, infrasound effects, hours of reading articles about mechanical systems, about urban noise pollution, about the physics of sound in confined spaces. Nothing fit. Nothing explained the precision, the consistency, the way it felt alive. That's when I shifted my search. Started looking at the building itself, the Grayson Building, constructed 1966. Originally a hotel, 12 floors, downtown location convenient for business travelers. I found photos from the 60s and 70s. The lobby had been elegant once, Art Deco fixtures, a chandelier. Then an article from 1979, Fire Guts Upper Floors of Downtown Hotel. 7 deaths, top 4 floors destroyed. Electrical fire started around 2 a.m., spread fast through the old building. Guests trapped in rooms, smoke inhalation. The article listed names, ages, occupations. I read through them, feeling sick. The building was rebuilt in the 80s, converted to apartments. Cheaper than demolishing, apparently. They kept the lower floors, added new structure on top. Different layout, different purpose. The bones remained the same. I kept digging. Found more recent articles from the 90s. The building had been used for art installations, experimental music performances. Something about a collective that took over several floors, turned them into sonic exploration spaces. One article from a local arts paper dated 1994. Resonant Frequencies, the Grayson Project pushes boundaries of sound art. I read it 3 times, my hands shaking. The artists had modified apartments, changed the architecture, the structure, to create specific acoustic properties. They were exploring infrasound, frequencies below normal human hearing that nonetheless create powerful psychological effects. Sound that you feel rather than hear, one artist explained in the interview. Frequencies that induce unease, dread, the sensation of presence. We're investigating how space and sound intersect, how buildings can become instruments. They'd run performances at night, immersive experiences lasting hours. Participants reported intense emotional responses, fear, anxiety, euphoria, transcendence. Some reported seeing things, feeling watched, hearing voices. The project was shut down in 1996 after multiple complaints. One participant had a breakdown during a session, had to be hospitalized. Others reported lasting psychological effects, panic attacks, insomnia, auditory hallucinations that persisted long after the performances ended. I found a follow-up piece from 1997. The modifications to the building were addressed during renovations. Walls stripped, structures examined, some changes made. But reading between the lines, I could tell they hadn't removed everything. Too expensive, too complicated. They just covered it up, plastered over it, sealed it behind new drywall and hoped no one would notice. My apartment had been part of the experimental space. I pulled up building records, cross-referenced addresses and unit numbers. My corner unit, 4C, had been listed as Performance Space B in the project documentation. The walls around me had been designed to do this, to resonate at specific frequencies, to create psychological effects in anyone who stayed long enough. B flat at 466 Hz, close to 7 Hz when you factor in the harmonics, the overtones I'd been hearing. I Googled 7 Hz effects on humans. The results made my stomach drop. 7 Hz is the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. Exposure causes visual distortions, seeing shadows, movement in peripheral vision, the sensation of figures in dark rooms. It also affects the inner ear. Balance issues. Vertigo. The feeling that walls are moving, breathing. It induces fear, anxiety, the primitive response that makes you feel like you're being watched, like something's wrong even when nothing visible threatens you. The apartment wasn't haunted. It was engineered to make me feel haunted. I should have felt relieved. Should have been glad it wasn't supernatural, wasn't my imagination, just physics and architecture and artists who'd gone too far. But the humming didn't stop, and now I was hearing it everywhere. At the coffee shop on the corner, there, underneath the espresso machine noise, that same low hum. At the grocery store, vibrating through the floor, resonating in the metal shelves. Walking down the street, coming from the pavement, the buildings, the air itself. Was it real? Was I actually hearing it? Or had my brain learned the frequency so well that it couldn't stop generating it? I couldn't tell anymore. The line between actual sound and auditory hallucination had blurred completely. My friend Emma came over one afternoon, concerned by my texts, by how I'd been withdrawing. Took one look at me and went pale. Jesus, Sophia, when's the last time you slept? I sleep. You look terrible. Have you been eating? I couldn't remember. Days had started blurring together. Time felt wrong, stretchy, unreliable. It's the apartment, I said. It makes sounds. At night. The walls were modified for sound experiments in the 90s, and they never fully removed the modifications. There are frequencies that... Sophia. She took my hands. You need to leave. Today. Right now. Pack a bag and come stay with me. I can't afford to break the lease. I don't care about the lease. You're not okay. This place is making you sick. It's not just me. Other people have lived here. They all left. All of them. That's why it's always available. That's why the rent was cheap. Emma looked around the apartment. I could see her trying to hear what I heard, feel what I felt, but she couldn't. The humming was mine now, had been woven into my nervous system, my perception, my understanding of sound itself. Come with me, she said gently. Just for a few days. Get some sleep somewhere else. Then we'll figure out next steps. I agreed, packed a bag, went to her place across town. But the humming followed me. In her guest room, lying in a bed that wasn't mine, I heard it, felt it. That same B-flat frequency, those same dissonant harmonics, that same breathing rhythm. It's in my head, I told Emma the next morning. The sound. It's not just the apartment anymore. It's in me. She wanted me to see a doctor, a therapist, someone who could help with what she thought was a breakdown. Maybe it was a breakdown. Maybe the infrasound had done exactly what it was designed to do. Create lasting psychological effects, rewire my perception, make me unable to trust my own senses. Or maybe I'd lived in that apartment long enough that the frequency had embedded itself in me. Become part of my baseline, the way tinnitus patients hear ringing forever after the damage is done. I went back to my apartment after 3 days. Couldn't hide at Emma's forever. Had to face it, had to deal with it, had to figure out how to live with this thing that had gotten inside me. The night I returned, the humming was waiting, louder than ever, aggressive, insistent, inescapable. I tried to practice, grabbed my cello, sat down, started playing. Anything to drown it out, to replace it with music I controlled. But my cello joined the hum. Every note I played bent toward B-flat. Every phrase pulled down into that frequency, like gravity, like magnetism, like the instrument itself had learned the sound and couldn't produce anything else. I played harder, faster, fighting against it. The walls hummed back. The room resonated with my cello, amplifying the sound, adding harmonics, creating that awful dissonant chord that made my teeth ache and my eyes water. I don't remember stopping, don't remember standing up, don't remember screaming. Came back to myself hours later, sitting in the corner, knees pulled to chest, cello on the floor beside me. My throat raw like I'd been screaming for hours. My phone showed 3 missed calls from the landlord. A text, neighbors complaining about noise, need to talk. I looked at the time. 4:47 a.m. Had I been playing all night? Had I been screaming? What had I done? My fingers hurt. Looked down at my left hand, the tips bloody where the strings had cut through calluses I'd developed over years of playing. My bow hand cramped so badly I could barely uncurl the fingers. The humming had stopped. The apartment was silent for the first time in weeks, and I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't stay here anymore. I called my mom at 5 a.m. She answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep and immediate worry. Sophia, what's wrong? I need you to come get me. My voice didn't sound like mine, thin, brittle, about to crack. I can't stay here anymore. I need to leave today. Okay, honey. I'm getting in the car right now. 4 hours. I'll be there by 9. She didn't ask questions. Didn't tell me I was being dramatic. Just got in her car and drove. I spent the next 4 hours packing. Everything I owned went into boxes and bags. Didn't fold clothes, didn't organize, just shoved everything in. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tape the boxes closed. The cello was last. Slid it into its case, clicked the latches. My fingers were bandaged now, throbbing where the strings had cut through skin. Looking at the instrument made me feel sick. Mom arrived at 9:12, took one look at me standing in the doorway and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, sweetheart." I didn't cry, couldn't. Too exhausted, too empty. We loaded her car in silence. She kept glancing at me, worry etched into her face, but she didn't push. Just helped me carry boxes, asked which ones were most important if we ran out of room. The landlord showed up as we were loading the last box. "Miss Torres, we need to discuss your lease." Mom stepped between us, protective, fierce. "My daughter is leaving today. You can send final bills to my address." She signed a year lease. There's a penalty for early termination. You put her in an apartment that made her sick. An apartment with a documented history of problems. An apartment that's had dozens of tenants leave early over the years because something is wrong with it. Her voice was steel. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let her out of that lease. You're going to return her deposit. And you're not going to fight me on this because I have records of the 1990s modifications, the complaints from previous tenants, and a lawyer who's very interested in hearing about negligent endangerment." The landlord's jaw worked. He looked at me, at the dark circles under my eyes, the bandaged fingers, the hollow way I stared at nothing. "Fine," he muttered. "I'll process the paperwork. Deposit will be returned in 10 business days." Mom didn't thank him, just turned back to the car. I stood at the threshold of my apartment one last time, looking at the empty space, the hardwood floors, the tall windows, the walls that had seemed so perfect and were actually designed to break people. The humming was there, would always be there, trapped in the structure, resonating forever, waiting for the next tenant who wouldn't understand what was happening until it was too late. "I'm sorry," I whispered, not to the apartment, to myself, to whoever had lived here before me, to whoever would live here next. Mom touched my shoulder. "Come on, honey. Let's go home." I pulled the door closed, heard the lock click, walked away. We drove 4 hours back to my childhood home. Mom tried to make conversation, asking gentle questions about teaching, about music, about anything except what had just happened. I mostly stared out the window, watching the city give way to suburbs, then to the small town where I grew up. My old bedroom was exactly as I'd left it. Posters from high school, music awards on the shelf, my first cello, a student instrument in the corner. A time capsule of a different Sophia, one who thought she knew where life was going. "Rest," Mom said. "Sleep as long as you need. We'll figure everything else out later." I slept for 14 hours, woke up disoriented, couldn't remember where I was for a few seconds. Then it came back, home, safe, away from the apartment. Listened carefully in the darkness, silence, just silence. The normal sounds of my mom's house, the furnace clicking on, a car passing on the street, the quiet hum of the refrigerator downstairs. No B-flat, no harmonics, no breathing walls. I cried for the first time in weeks. The next day, Mom made me eat breakfast. Real food, not the coffee and protein bars I'd been surviving on. Made me shower, made me sit in the sunlight coming through the kitchen window. "How long has it been like this?" she asked gently. "Weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. Time got weird. Why didn't you call sooner?" I thought I could figure it out. Thought I could understand it, control it. That's what I do. Analyze problems, find solutions. I laughed bitterly. But you can't analyze your way out of something that's changing your brain. She reached across the table, took my hand. "You're safe now. That's what matters." But I wasn't sure that was true, because that night, lying in my childhood bed, I heard it again. Faint, distant, but there. That same B-flat hum, those same dissonant overtones, that same rhythm like breathing. Was it real? Was the apartment still affecting me? Or had my brain learned to generate the sound the way amputees feel phantom limbs? I didn't tell my mom. Didn't want to worry her more than I already had. The humming faded over the next few days. Not gone, but quieter. Like turning down volume on a speaker, slowly, gradually, until it was barely noticeable. A week after leaving the apartment, I could sleep through the night. 2 weeks, the headache stopped. 3 weeks, I could listen to music without every song pulling toward B flat. But I was different, changed. The way you're changed after trauma, after your understanding of the world shifts and can't shift back. Mom wanted me to see someone, a therapist, a doctor, someone who could help process what happened. I agreed. Started talking to a counselor who specialized in trauma, in recovered sleep disorders, in anxiety. I didn't tell her about the humming, about the modifications to the apartment, about infrasound and resonant frequencies. Just said I'd been living in a stressful situation, had developed insomnia, needed to leave. It was easier than trying to explain the truth, than watching someone's face shift from concern to skepticism as they tried to figure out if I was describing reality or delusion. My cello stayed in its case for a month. I couldn't bring myself to open it, to play, to risk hearing those sounds again. When I finally did, standing in my mom's living room on a Saturday afternoon, bow shaking in my hand, the first note came out clean. Normal. Just a cello. Just sound. Nothing haunted. I cried again, relief this time. 6 months later, I'm living in a different city, smaller, quieter, farther from the apartment and everything it represented. Found work teaching at a community music school, giving private lessons. No performing, no orchestras, no pressure. My apartment now is modern, concrete and steel, built in 2015, with acoustics that are terrible for a musician. Sounds die the moment they're made, absorbed by drywall and insulation and all the things that make buildings quiet and safe and ordinary. I don't care. I prefer it this way. The cello comes out most days now. I practice, I teach, I play, but I'm different, more careful. Certain frequencies still make me anxious, B flat especially, but others too. Anything that resonates too long, that feels like it's vibrating through walls instead of air. My students don't understand why I insist on specific practice rooms, why I refuse to play in spaces with good acoustics. I tell them I have sound sensitivities now, that loud or resonant spaces give me headaches. It's close enough to the truth. I still research the building sometimes. Can't help myself. Found an online forum about haunted apartments, people sharing experiences of places that felt wrong, that made them sick, that they couldn't explain. My old apartment comes up repeatedly. Unit 4C at the Grayson Building. Dozens of posts over the years, going back to the early 2000s. Constant humming at night. Felt like the walls were breathing. Couldn't sleep, couldn't think, had to leave after 3 months. Does anyone know what's wrong with this place? The landlord still rents it, still advertises it as having excellent acoustics and artistic atmosphere, still offers discounted rent to musicians, artists, people who he thinks will appreciate the space, people who won't ask too many questions about why it's always available. I thought about reporting it, contacting the city, filing complaints, doing something to warn people. But what would I say? That the building has modifications from the 1990s that create psychological effects through infrasound. That frequencies trapped in the walls make people sick. They'd look at building records, find that renovations addressed the modifications in 1997. Everything's up to code now, technically legal, nothing actionable. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was all in my head. Stress and burnout manifesting as auditory hallucinations, the brain creating patterns out of nothing. Maybe the infrasound explanation was just me grasping for rational answers to an irrational breakdown. I don't know. I'll never know. What I do know is this. Sound is more powerful than people realize. It shapes us, changes us, gets inside us in ways we can't fully understand. And some places hold sound the way others hold cold or heat. It seeps into the structure, becomes part of the building itself, echoes forever. To this day, I don't know if what I experienced was entirely real or partly psychological. The science says infrasound can cause everything I felt: fear, hallucinations, the sensation of presence, physical symptoms, lasting effects. But science doesn't capture what it felt like to live inside that frequency, to feel it rewriting my perception until I couldn't trust my own senses. I think about the other tenants, the ones who lived there before me, the ones who will live there after. The forum posts spanning decades, all describing the same things: humming, pressure, walls that breathe, the feeling that something is wrong even when nothing visible threatens you. How many people has that apartment broken? How many more will it break? The building is still standing. The apartment is still being rented. Right now, someone might be moving in, drawn by cheap rent and good acoustics, not knowing what they're walking into. Not knowing that in a few weeks they'll hear the humming, and in a few months they won't be able to stop hearing it. I hope they're smarter than I was. Hope they leave sooner before it gets inside them. Sometimes late at night, when my apartment is quiet and the city sounds have faded, I hear it. That low B-flat hum, those dissonant harmonics, that breathing rhythm. Is it memory? Auditory trauma? My brain replaying the sound because it learned it too well? Or did I bring something with me when I left? Some frequency embedded so deep in my nervous system that it plays on repeat forever? I don't know. Can't know. The line between what was real and what my mind created has blurred beyond recognition. I don't play B flat anymore. Skip over it in pieces, transpose when I have to, avoid it entirely when I can. My students think it's a quirk. My fellow teachers think it's odd but harmless. Only I know it's survival. If you're apartment hunting and find a place with perfect acoustics, with rent that seems too good to be true, with a landlord who's eager to get you moved in, ask questions. Ask how long the last tenant stayed. Ask if anyone's complained about sounds. Ask why a place in a competitive market is sitting empty. And if you move in and hear humming at night, a sound that shouldn't be there, that you feel in your bones more than hear in your ears, leave. Don't try to understand it. Don't try to prove it's real or explain it away. Don't wait until it gets inside you. Just leave. Some sounds you can't unhear. Some frequencies stay with you forever, playing beneath everything else like a drone note that never resolves. I'm doing better now. Really. I sleep, I eat, I function. I teach students who remind me why I loved music in the first place. I play my cello most days and remember that sound can be beautiful, not just haunting. But on quiet nights, in the space between sleeping and waking, I still hear it. That apartment hum, that breathing rhythm, that frequency that shouldn't exist but does, trapped in walls somewhere across the state, waiting. And I know that part of me is still there, still standing in that corner unit with perfect acoustics, still listening to walls that learned to sing a song no one should ever hear. The apartment that hummed taught me something about sound. It's not just vibrations in air, not just physics and frequencies and waves. It's memory. It's trauma. It's everything that ever happened in a space, resonating forever, changing everyone who stays long enough to listen. I still remember the frequency, 466.16 hertz, B flat, perfect pitch. The note that rewrote my understanding of sound and silence and the spaces between. Some things you learn, you can never unlearn. Some sounds become part of you. And sometimes, in the deep quiet of a safe apartment in a different city, I wonder if I'm really hearing it, or if I've just become another echo, another frequency trapped in the architecture of my own mind, humming the same note forever. Story 3. The Man in Apartment. 3B. The coughing stopped 3 days ago. That's when I knew something was really wrong. I'm Sarah, 32 years old, and I work from home as a freelance graphic designer. Moved into apartment 2B back in September, about 4 months ago now. The building's old, built in the 1950s. One of those places with thin walls and creaky floors where you hear everything your neighbors do. I'm directly below apartment 3B. For weeks, I'd been hearing this coughing through my ceiling. Deep, wet, painful sounding. The kind of cough that makes you wince just hearing it. At first, it drove me crazy. I'd be on client calls and hear it start up. This hacking, rattling sound right above my head made me lose my train of thought, made me sound unprofessional when I had to pause mid-sentence. But after a while, I got used to it. Started anticipating it even. Around 2 a.m. every night, like clockwork. Then again around 9 a.m. Random times throughout the day too, but those 2 times were consistent. It became part of the routine, you know? Part of living here. The radiator pipes clanking in the morning, the winter wind rattling the windows, and the coughing from 3B. The building is quiet otherwise, mostly older tenants who keep to themselves. I'd see people in the lobby sometimes, Mrs. Alvarez from 4A, the couple in 1C, but we'd just nod, maybe say hello, nothing more. I'd never actually seen whoever lived in 3B, never ran into them in the hallway, never saw them checking their mail. Different schedules, I figured. The mail slots in the lobby showed R. Morrison, 3B, on a faded label that looked like it had been there for decades. The landlord lives across town, barely responds to maintenance requests. I'd emailed him twice about a leaky faucet in my bathroom and got nothing back, so I wasn't about to bother him about someone else's health issues. Over the past month, the coughing got worse, more frequent, sounded sicker. Sometimes I'd hear it for 10, 15 minutes straight. I'd think about going upstairs, knocking on the door, asking if they were okay, if they needed anything. But I never did. Didn't want to intrude. Didn't want to be that neighbor who gets involved in other people's business. Plus, I'm not exactly social. Working from home, living alone, I've gotten used to keeping to myself. I told myself they were probably seeing a doctor, taking medication. It was winter. Everyone gets sick in winter. The building's heating was uneven at best. My apartment was always either too hot or freezing cold, never comfortable. Then one morning, January 7th, I remember the date because I'd just invoiced a client. I ran into Mrs. Alvarez in the lobby. She had her mail, was sorting through envelopes while we waited for the front door to close behind someone leaving. "Have you heard about the tenant in 3B?" she asked, not looking up from her mail. At first, I thought she meant the coughing. "What about them?" I asked. "Died last month," she said, finally looking up at me. "Robert Morrison. Heart attack. They found him in his apartment." I stared at her. "What?" "Natural causes," they said. Poor man had been dead for a day or two before anyone noticed. Landlord had to get the body removed, clean the place out. She shook her head. "Lived here for 30 years. Can you imagine?" My mind was racing. When did this happen? Early December. December 3rd, I think. Maybe 4th. One of those days. She tucked her mail under her arm. "Why?" "I've been hearing coughing," I said, "from 3B for weeks." She gave me a strange look. "That apartment's been empty since they took the body out. Landlord's supposed to clean it next month, get it ready for a new tenant. But I heard it last night, at 2 a.m., that deep cough, right above my bedroom. Probably pipes," she said, but her tone had changed, less certain. "Old building, makes all kinds of noises. It's not pipes." She didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, dear. That apartment is empty, has been for over a month." She left, and I stood there in the lobby, trying to make sense of it. That night I couldn't focus on work, kept looking up at my ceiling, waiting. Around 8 p.m., I went online, searched Robert Morrison obituary. Found it immediately. Robert Morrison, 67, died peacefully on December 3rd, 2024. No surviving family. Services held at Riverside Chapel. In lieu of flowers, donations could be made to the American Heart Association. December 3rd, more than a month ago. I checked my phone calendar, scrolled back through my notes. I'd first mentioned the coughing to a friend in a text message on November 20th. "Neighbor upstairs has the worst cough, keeping me awake." The coughing had been happening before he died, and it had continued after. That night, 2:14 a.m., I checked the time. I heard it again. That same deep, wet cough, directly above my bedroom in apartment 3B. I got out of bed, stood in the middle of my room, looking up at the ceiling. The sound was clear, unmistakable. Not pipes, not the building settling, not my imagination. Someone was coughing in that apartment. I grabbed my phone, opened the voice memo app, started recording. The coughing continued for another minute, then stopped. I played back the recording. It was there, captured clearly. In the morning, I went upstairs, stood in front of apartment 3B's door. The number was tarnished brass, slightly crooked. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Louder. Nothing. I knelt down, looked through the mail slot. Inside, I could see a pile of mail on the floor. Catalogs, envelopes, junk mail. Weeks worth of it, maybe more. The apartment beyond was dim, curtains drawn, but I could make out shapes. Boxes, maybe, some furniture, and dust. Thick dust, visible even in the low light, coating the floor near the door. I was about to stand up when I heard something. Footsteps, shuffling, slow, moving from deeper in the apartment toward the door. I jerked back, stood up quickly, waited. The footsteps stopped. Silence. My heart was pounding. I pressed my ear against the door, listening. Nothing. Just the building's ambient sounds, the radiator clanking somewhere below, the wind outside. I went back downstairs, called the landlord, got his voicemail, left a message. Hi, this is Sarah in 2B. I think someone might be in apartment 3B. I've been hearing noises, and I thought you said it was empty. Can you check it out? Thanks. He called back 3 hours later, annoyed. The apartment's been empty for 5 weeks, he said. Cleaned it out myself after Morrison died. Nobody's been in there. I'm hearing someone, coughing, footsteps, every night. He sighed. It's an old building. Pipes make noise. Things settle. If there was someone in there, they'd have to have a key, and I'm the only one with keys. Can you come check? Please? I'll send someone over in a few days. But I'm telling you, it's empty. He hung up. That night, 2 a.m. again, the coughing started. I grabbed my phone, called my friend Jessica, put her on speaker while I recorded. You hear that? I asked. Yeah, she said. Sounds like someone's really sick. Have you talked to them? The tenant died last month. Silence on the line. Sarah, I know how it sounds. It's probably just the building. Old pipes can make weird sounds. My apartment does the same thing. This isn't pipes, Jess. Then maybe it's a different apartment. Maybe you're confused about where it's coming from. I wasn't confused. I'd lived here for 4 months. I knew exactly where the sound was coming from. After we hung up, I pulled up the building directory on my phone. The landlord had emailed it when I moved in. Apartment 3B, vacant, as of December 3rd, 2024. I searched for more information about Robert Morrison, found an old Facebook page, deactivated, a LinkedIn profile that hadn't been updated since 2018. Nothing useful. But I did find the medical examiner's report. It was public record. Cause of death, cardiac arrest. Contributing factors, severe pneumonia, chronic respiratory infection. Severe pneumonia. That's why the coughing. He'd been sick for a long time before he died. The coughing continued every night that week, always around 2 a.m. Sometimes I'd hear it at other times too, mid-afternoon, early evening. But 2 a.m. was consistent. I documented it, voice recordings, timestamps, notes about duration and intensity. By January 10th, I had a week's worth of evidence, and then, on January 11th, the coughing stopped. Complete silence from apartment 3B. I should have been relieved. Instead, I felt a growing sense of dread, because silence meant something had changed. 3 days of silence, no coughing at 2 a.m., no sounds at all from apartment 3B. I found myself lying awake at night, listening for it, waiting for it. The absence felt wrong, like holding your breath underwater. On the fourth night, January 14th, I heard something new. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the floor above me, from one end of the apartment to the other, back and forth, back and forth. Not the quick steps of someone going about their business, pacing, like someone restless, agitated, trapped. I looked at my phone, 11:47 p.m. The footsteps continued. I got out of bed, stood in my bedroom, tracking the sound. It moved from what would be the living room area toward the back where the bedroom would be, then back again, over and over, for hours. I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Just lay there, listening to those slow, shuffling footsteps above me. Around 3:30 a.m., they stopped. Right above my bed, the footsteps stopped, and I could hear breathing. Wet, labored breathing, like someone with fluid in their lungs struggling to get air. It was 3:42 a.m. when I checked my phone. The breathing continued for 20 minutes. I didn't move, didn't make a sound, just lay there, frozen, listening to someone, something, breathe above me. Then the footsteps started again, moving toward the apartment door. I heard it open, the distinctive sound of a door opening, hinges creaking, then closing. Someone had just left 3B. My body moved before my brain caught up. Got out of bed, went to my door, pressed my ear against it. Listened. Footsteps in the hallway, moving toward the stairwell. I unlocked my door as quietly as I could, opened it a crack, peered out. The stairwell door at the end of the hall was just closing. I should have stayed in my apartment, should have locked the door, called the police, let them handle it. Instead, I stepped into the hallway. Apartment 3B's door was closed. I approached it slowly, put my hand on the doorknob. Cold, ice cold, like metal left outside in winter. I tried to turn it, locked, but I'd just heard someone leave. Just heard the door open and close. I backed away from the door, went back into my apartment, locked it, pushed my desk chair against the doorknob. Then I waited. Around 4:15 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway again, coming from the stairwell, slow, uneven, a shuffling gait like someone dragging their feet. They moved down the hallway, getting closer. They stopped outside my door. I held my breath, backed away from the door, stood near my bedroom. The doorknob turned, locked. A pause, then a cough. That same deep, wet cough I'd been hearing for weeks. Right outside my door, inches away. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, just stood there, watching the doorknob. It turned again, still locked. Then silence. I waited 10 minutes, 15. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. Finally, I called 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's trying to get into my apartment. My voice was barely a whisper. They're in the hallway, outside my door. Are you in a safe location? I'm inside. Door is locked. We're sending officers to your location. Stay on the line with me. I stayed by my bedroom door, as far from the front door as possible, listening to the operator's calm voice while I waited for sirens. The police arrived 12 minutes later. I heard them in the hallway, heard them knock on my door. Police, ma'am. I moved the chair, unlocked the door. 2 officers, young, professional. You called about someone trying to enter your apartment? Yes, they were right outside, maybe 15 minutes ago. They checked the hallway. Nothing. No one there. Which apartment did they come from? 3B upstairs. But that apartment is supposed to be empty. The tenant died last month. One officer went upstairs while the other stayed with me. I heard him knocking on 3B's door, trying the handle. He came back down. No answer. Door's locked. Landlord have keys? Yes, but he won't come out here. He thinks I'm imagining things. The officers exchanged a glance. I have recordings, I said, pulling up my phone. Listen. I played the coughing sounds I'd captured. They listened. nodded. Could be from any apartment, one said. Sound travels funny in old buildings. It's from 3B, I know it is. Ma'am, we checked. There's no one up there. The door is locked from the outside. I wanted to scream. Then how did I hear footsteps? How did someone try my door? We'll file a report. You have security cameras in the building? No. All right. Keep your door locked. Call us if anyone tries to enter again. They left, and I stood in my apartment, feeling stupid and scared and angry all at once. After they were gone, I noticed something on my doormat. A piece of mail. Not addressed to me. Addressed to R. Morrison, 3B. It was a utility bill. Envelope yellowed with age, covered in dust, like it had been sitting in that apartment for weeks. But it wasn't there before. I would have seen it when I opened the door for the police. I picked it up with shaking hands. The envelope was cold, damp, like it had been sitting in water. I dropped it immediately, went back inside, locked the door, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I sat on my couch with every light on, phone in my hand, waiting for sunrise. Around 5 a.m., I heard the apartment door upstairs open again. Footsteps in the hallway, coming down the stairs. This time, I didn't hesitate. Grabbed my keys, my phone, my wallet off the counter, shoved my feet into sneakers without untying them. The footsteps reached my floor. I could hear that breathing again, wet, gurgling, right outside in the hallway. My doorknob turned. I ran to my bedroom, to the window. I have a fire escape, old metal platform, rusted but functional. Used it once when I locked myself out. Opened the window. January air hit me like a slap. No coat, no time. Behind me, I heard a sound that made my blood freeze. A key sliding into my lock, metal on metal, scraping. The lock clicked. I climbed out onto the fire escape, my hands already going numb from the cold. Down the metal stairs, 2 flights, my sneakers slipping on frost. Jumped the last few feet to the alley, landed hard, pain shooting up my ankle. Didn't care. Ran. Out of the alley onto the street. The sun wasn't up yet, sky still dark, streetlights casting orange pools on empty sidewalks. I looked back at the building. My apartment window, the one I'd left open, was dark, but there was a shape in it. Tall, thin, wrong posture, bent at an angle that wasn't natural. Watching me, I ran. 2 blocks to the 24-hour diner on 4th Street. Burst through the door, probably looked insane. No coat, sneakers untied, gasping for air. The waitress looked up, concerned. "Honey, you okay?" "Coffee," I managed. "Please." She brought it. I sat in a booth by the window where I could see the street. Wrapped my hands around the cup, even though it was too hot, just needing the warmth. Called my brother at 6 a.m. "Sarah, what's wrong? Can I stay with you?" "Please. I can't explain right now, but I need to leave my apartment." "Of course. When?" "Today. Now. As soon as possible." He heard something in my voice. Didn't ask questions. "I'll be there in an hour." I waited in that diner until the sun came up, until normal people started appearing on the street, heading to work, getting coffee, until the world felt real again. My brother arrived at 7:30. We drove to my building together. I made him come up with me. No way I was going in alone. My apartment door was locked. I'd locked it when I left somehow, muscle memory even in panic. But inside, things were different. The chair I'd pushed against the door was back at my desk, exactly where it belonged. My TV was on. I'd turned everything off. I was sure of it. And there was water, puddles of it, on my floor. A trail leading from my front door through the living room to my bedroom, to the window I'd climbed out of. "What the hell?" my brother said. I called the building super. He came up, saw the water, shook his head. "Pipes in 3B must have burst. I'll check it out." The police were in 3B last night. There was no water. Well, it's old plumbing. Things happen. He went upstairs, came back 10 minutes later. No burst pipes. Place is bone dry. Must be coming from somewhere else. But I knew. I'd seen inside 3B with the police. No water, no puddles, nothing. I started packing, threw clothes in a suitcase, grabbed my laptop, my work stuff, essentials. "You're really leaving?" my brother asked. "I'm not staying here another night." As we were carrying boxes to his car, I looked up at the building, at apartment 3B's window. Someone was standing there, pale face, hollow eyes, watching me load my things. "Do you see that?" I grabbed my brother's arm, pointed. He looked up. "See what?" "In that window, 3rd floor." He squinted. "I don't see anyone." When I looked again, the figure was gone. We loaded the last box. I handed my keys to the building super, told him I was breaking my lease. He barely shrugged. "Your deposit won't cover the early termination fee." "I don't care." As we drove away, I watched the building in the side mirror until we turned the corner and it disappeared. I stayed with my brother for 2 months, lost my security deposit, lost the early termination fee, didn't care. Some things are worth more than money. The nightmares took longer to fade. I'd wake up hearing that coughing, feeling like someone was standing over my bed, breathing that wet, labored breathing. My brother never asked what happened. Not directly, just let me stay, gave me space, didn't push. After a few weeks, I started researching. Couldn't help myself. Needed to understand. Robert Morrison had lived in apartment 3B for 30 years. Moved in when he was in his late 30s. Never left. Never married. No close family listed in his obituary. He'd worked as an accountant until he retired at 65. Quiet life. Unremarkable. Died alone in that apartment. The obituary said, died peacefully, but the medical examiner's report told a different story. Heart attack, yes, but also severe pneumonia. He'd been sick for weeks, maybe months. Nobody checked on him. Nobody noticed he was suffering. He probably died coughing, alone, in the dark. I found more information about the building. 3 other tenants had left in the past 6 months. All of them from the 2nd floor. All of them directly below 3B. One of them, a woman named Patricia, had left a review on an apartment rating site. Something wrong with that building. Heard things at night I can't explain. Management did nothing. Left after 2 months. Don't rent here. Another tenant, a man named David, had mentioned in a Reddit post about weird apartment experiences. Lived below a dead guy's apartment. Kept hearing noises after he died. Landlord thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. They'd all heard it too. They'd all left. To this day, I can't sleep without a white noise machine. Can't stand silence. Can't stand the sound of coughing. If someone coughs in a store or on the bus, I have to leave. My heart races. My hands shake. I'm back in that apartment. I wonder sometimes if Robert Morrison is still there. If part of him never left. If he's still in apartment 3B coughing in the dark, shuffling from room to room, trying to remember what it was like to be alive. Or maybe he's angry. Angry that nobody checked on him when he was sick. Angry that he died alone, that it took days for anyone to notice. Angry that everyone just forgot about him. Maybe that's why he came to my door. Maybe he just wanted someone to know he was there. I looked up the building recently. Couldn't help myself. Just wanted to see. Apartment 2B, my old apartment, is available for rent. Has been for 3 months. Same rent I was paying. Quiet building, great location, the listing says. Nobody stays, and apartment 3B shows as occupied now. There's a new tenant. Someone actually moved in there. I wonder if they hear footsteps below them, if they hear breathing through the floor, if they know what happened to the man who lived there before, if they know he never really left. I thought about sending them a message somehow, warning them. But what would I say? The previous tenant is still there, just in a different way. They'd think I was insane. Maybe I am. The doctors my brother made me see said it was trauma, stress, that living alone, working from home, I'd isolated myself too much. that the coughing was real, probably from a different apartment. But everything else was my mind filling in gaps, creating patterns, turning ordinary sounds into something sinister. Maybe they're right. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. I know that cold, damp envelope addressed to a dead man appeared on my doormat after the police left. I know that water trail led from my door to the window I escaped through. And I know that something tried to get into my apartment using a key. The coughing stopped 3 days before I left. That should have been a relief. But that's when I knew something was really wrong. Because when it stops, that's when it starts looking. That's when it knows you're paying attention. And once it knows that, it doesn't forget. Story 4, the street light that followed me home. I noticed the pattern on a Thursday, not the first time the street light died. That had been happening for 2 weeks. But Thursday was when I realized it was always the same light, and it only went out when I was directly underneath. The walk home from work was my favorite part of the day. 15 minutes of quiet after 8 hours of customer service calls, people complaining about insurance premiums I had no control over. I'd walk down Commercial Street, turn left on Maple, then right on Oak, straight to my apartment complex at the end of the block. Same route every night. 11:15 p.m., like clockwork. I'd moved to Bellingham 4 months ago for this job. First time living alone, first time in a city bigger than 5,000 people. My mom called every Sunday asking if I felt safe, if I'd made friends, if I was eating enough. I told her yes to everything because it was easier than explaining that I actually liked the quiet, liked keeping to myself, liked my predictable little routine. The apartment was a studio on the ground floor, $950 a month, furnished with basics that weren't quite my style but were good enough. I worked 3 to 11, came home, watched TV until 1 or 2 in the morning, slept until noon, repeated. Weekends I'd explore the city a little, hit up thrift stores, grab coffee, normal 24-year-old stuff. And every night I walked the same route home. October in the Pacific Northwest meant early darkness, wet leaves on the sidewalk, that smell of rain and decay that I was still getting used to. The streetlights lined Oak Street at regular intervals. Every 50 feet or so, bright sodium vapor lamps that turned everything orange and strange. 2 weeks ago, the light at the corner of Maple and Oak went dark as I passed beneath it. Just a quick flicker, then nothing. It happened sometimes. Old bulbs, bad wiring, whatever. The sound of my footsteps echoed in the sudden pocket of darkness, leaves crunching underfoot. I barely thought about it. It happened again the next night. Same light, same timing. By the end of the week, I'd started noticing it deliberately, waiting for it. That specific street light at the corner, it would be on when I turned onto Oak Street. I could see it glowing from half a block away. But the moment I walked directly beneath it, it would die. Not a flicker this time, just an instant transition from light to dark. And then, after I'd walked another 20 feet, it would come back on behind me. Thursday was when I stopped to test it. Stood under the light, looking up at the fixture. It stayed on. I took a few steps forward, darkness. Stepped backward, light returned. Forward again, dark. I told myself it was a motion sensor issue. Maybe the fixture was installed wrong, had some weird electrical fault that triggered when someone stood in a specific spot. City maintenance problem, nothing sinister, just faulty wiring and coincidence. But my heart was beating a little faster as I walked the rest of the way home. Friday night, the street light went dark again. Same location, same timing. But this time, as I walked away, I looked back. In the darkness where the light had been, something moved. Probably just a cat or someone's trash blowing around. I picked up my pace anyway. Reached my apartment building, fumbled with my keys at the door. Inside, I locked the deadbolt and the chain, something I didn't usually bother with. Through my front window, I could see Oak Street. The street light at the corner of Maple glowed steady and orange, like it always had, like nothing had ever been wrong with it. I closed the curtains and tried not to think about it. Saturday night, a different street light went dark. Not the one at the corner of Maple and Oak. The next one down, closer to my apartment building, the light that usually illuminated the stretch of sidewalk right in front of Mrs. Patterson's house with the overgrown hedge. It went out the moment I passed beneath it. I stopped walking, turned around slowly, looking back at the dark patch behind me, counted to 30 in my head while my breath made clouds in the cold air. The light stayed dark. I took another step forward. The next streetlight ahead of me flickered, dimmed, then held steady. I looked back again. The light behind me came on with an audible click. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, typed with clumsy fingers. Saturday, October 21st. Different light. One closer to apartment. Turned back on after 30 seconds. Documentation felt important somehow, like I needed proof, even if just for myself. Sunday was technically my day off, but I'd gotten into the habit of taking a walk at 11:15 p.m. anyway. Routine, comfort, the same path through the same pools of light, the same counting of my steps on the same sidewalk cracks. I told myself I was going to break the pattern, stay home, watch a movie, prove to myself that the streetlights were just faulty infrastructure and I was being ridiculous. But 11:15 came, and I was putting on my jacket. 2 lights went dark that night. The first one died as I turned onto Oak Street from Maple. The second one, even closer to my apartment, went out when I was still 20 feet away from it. Like it was anticipating my position, shutting off early. I didn't stop this time. Walked faster, sneakers slapping against wet pavement. The lights didn't come back on behind me. I could feel the darkness there, expanding, a zone of nothing that shouldn't exist in a well-lit residential neighborhood. When I reached my apartment building's front steps, I finally looked back. Both lights were on again, orange sodium glow illuminating empty street, parked cars, normal suburban night. A car drove past, its headlights sweeping across me. The driver didn't slow down, didn't seem to notice anything wrong. Just another night, just another person walking home. I went inside and stood at my window for 20 minutes, watching the streetlights, all of them functioning normally, steady, reliable, exactly as they should be. Monday night, 3 lights went dark, sequential, one after another as I walked, like dominoes falling. The sound of my footsteps seemed muffled in those patches of darkness, like the absence of light was swallowing the noise too. I tried to walk quietly, but couldn't. Every scuff of my shoe against concrete echoed loud and wrong. A woman was walking her dog on the other side of the street. I wanted to call out to her, ask if she saw it too, if the lights looked wrong. But she kept walking, dog pulling at the leash, everything normal for her. Maybe it was just me. Maybe something was wrong with my eyes, my perception. Too much screen time at work, staring at monitors for 8 hours straight. Eye strain causing me to see darkness where there wasn't any. But that didn't explain why it was always the same lights, always when I passed underneath. Tuesday night, I decided to test it properly. When the first light went out, the one at the corner of Maple and Oak, like it had been in the beginning, I stopped. Just stood there in the sudden darkness, counting. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. The light stayed dark as long as I remained beneath it. I took one deliberate step forward. The next light, 20 feet ahead, went dark immediately. I stepped backward. The light behind me, the one I'd just been standing under, clicked back on. I was standing at the border between light and dark, literally on the edge. My heart was hammering now, fear mixing with something else. Curiosity, the need to understand. I walked forward normally, keeping count in my head. 5 lights went dark tonight, each one closer to my apartment complex than the last, each one erasing light in a path that was narrowing, pointing, following the exact route I took every single night. A car passed, its engine rumbling in the quiet. Normal night sounds drifted from the houses around me. A dog barking 3 houses down, wind rustling through the trees that lined the street. Everything normal, except the growing patch of darkness behind me, spreading like spilled ink across the pavement. Tomorrow night, I realized with cold certainty the darkness would reach my front door. I stood outside my apartment building for a full minute, not wanting to go in, not wanting to turn my back on Oak Street. Looking at the pattern of lights, 5 dark, then one by one, starting from the farthest, they began turning back on. Click, 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 like something retreating, like something disappointed. I went inside, locked every lock on my door, and leaned against it, breathing hard. Through my front window, I watched as the last light turned back on. The street returned to normal, well lit, suburban, safe. But I knew what would happen tomorrow. The darkness was learning my route, marking my path. And it was getting closer. I pulled out my phone, stared at the emergency call button. What would I even say? "Officer, the streetlights are following me home." They'd think I was drunk or high or having some kind of episode. I opened my laptop instead, searched street light malfunction patterns and electrical grid problems and lights going out when person passes. Found articles about faulty sensors, power grid issues, mass bulb failures. Nothing that explained sequential darkness that moved with someone, that responded to position and reversed direction. I kept searching until 3 a.m., finding nothing useful. When I finally tried to sleep, I left every light in my apartment on. The streetlight outside my window glowed through the curtains, casting orange lines across my ceiling. I watched those lines until exhaustion dragged me under, halfway hoping they'd flicker out, halfway terrified they would. Wednesday morning, I called in sick to work. First time since I'd started the job 4 months ago. My supervisor sounded surprised but didn't push. "Feel better, Jess. See you Thursday." I spent the day in my apartment, anxious and restless, checking the window every 20 minutes. The streetlights all functioned normally. Cars drove past, people walked dogs, mailman delivered mail. Everything was completely, utterly normal. Evening came. The streetlights turned on automatically at dusk, their sensors responding to dropping light levels like they were supposed to, all working fine. Maybe staying home had broken the pattern. Maybe whatever was causing this, faulty wiring, my own perception problems, whatever, had reset overnight. Maybe I'd worried about nothing. 11:15 p.m. arrived, my usual walk-home time. I was on the couch, watching some crime show, trying to focus on the plot. Trying not to think about the empty street outside, the route I wasn't walking, the pattern I'd broken. The lights in my apartment flickered. Not a power surge, just a quick dimming, like someone had turned down a dial. 1 second of reduced light, then back to normal. I sat up straighter, remote control frozen in my hand. 11:17 p.m. The lights dimmed again. 11:19 p.m. Again. The timing matched my walking pace, the rhythm of my footsteps, the speed at which I covered ground. Every 2 minutes, the time it took me to walk from one streetlight to the next. It didn't matter that I wasn't outside. It was still following the route, still coming, still expecting me. I ran to the window, yanked the curtains aside. The streetlights on Oak Street were all on, all functioning. But as I watched, the one at the corner of Maple and Oak went dark. 2 minutes later, the next one died. Then the next. Closer, getting closer. The darkness was coming whether I walked the route or not. It had learned my pattern so well it didn't need me there anymore. It could follow the path by itself, marking time, marking distance, coming to where it knew I'd be. The streetlight directly in front of my apartment building went dark. I stumbled back from the window, heart in my throat. Every light in my apartment felt too bright suddenly, too exposed. Like I was in a fishbowl and something outside was looking in. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the number for the non-emergency police line, stared at it. Couldn't press call. What was I reporting? Streetlights going dark on schedule, my own paranoia. The light in my bathroom flickered, then my bedroom, then the kitchen. Like it was testing my space, learning the layout, figuring out which lights belonged to me. I stood in the center of my studio apartment, surrounded by flickering light, and understood with perfect, terrible clarity that this wasn't about faulty wiring or coincidence or my imagination. Something had noticed me, my routine, my predictability, my path, and it was here. Thursday morning, I forced myself to get up, shower, go to work, act normal, pretend everything was fine. My coworkers asked if I was feeling better. I said yes, must have been a 24-hour bug. My supervisor gave me a sympathetic nod and a stack of claim files to process. I sat in my cubicle, headset on, taking calls about coverage limits and deductibles while my mind replayed the flickering lights, the darkness spreading, the pattern that had found where I lived. Around 2 p.m., I made a decision. I'd take a different route home tonight, break the pattern completely. If this thing, whatever it was, had learned my routine, I'd simply establish a new one. Commercial Street to Pine instead of Maple, then Cedar instead of Oak. Different streets, different lights, different path. It made sense. It was logical. It had to work. My shift ended at 11. I walked out to the parking lot where I'd left my car that morning. First time I'd driven to work in weeks. But tonight I wanted the option of leaving fast if I needed to. I drove to a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment, killed time until 11:15 p.m., my usual walk-home time. Needed to maintain that part of the pattern, just in case. Then I got out and started walking. Commercial Street to Pine, left turn, different than my usual route. The streetlights here were newer, LED instead of sodium vapor, whiter light, clearer. I kept my pace steady, deliberately not looking back. Pine to Cedar, right turn. Houses I'd never seen before, cars I didn't recognize. This neighborhood was slightly nicer, better maintained yards, newer paint jobs. No lights went out. I walked the full 15 minutes, taking the long way around, approaching my apartment complex from the opposite direction, heart pounding the entire time, but nothing happened. Every streetlight stayed on, every shadow was just a shadow. When I reached my building, I stood outside for a moment, looking back at the route I'd taken. All lights functioning, no darkness following. Relief flooded through me so intensely my knees felt weak. I'd solved it, changed the pattern. Whatever this was, it couldn't adapt that fast. Friday night, I used the same new route, Commercial to Pine to Cedar. Different path, different timing, even wore different clothes like that might matter somehow. Everything felt lighter. The fear from earlier in the week seemed silly now, overblown. Just some weird electrical issue that was specific to Oak Street, probably some known problem the city was working on. No lights went out on my new route. Saturday, I actually relaxed. Went to a bookstore, grabbed lunch at a place I'd been meaning to try. Felt like myself again, normal 24-year-old, living her normal life. That night, I didn't even think about the walk home. Just put on my jacket at 11:15 and headed out, taking my new route like it had always been my route. Everything was fine until I got home. I unlocked my apartment door, stepped inside, reached for the light switch. Nothing happened. I flipped it again. Nothing. The street light outside my window, the one that had been on when I walked up, was dark now. I could see through the gap in my curtains. Total darkness where there should have been orange glow. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight. My apartment looked strange in the white LED beam, shadows falling wrong, familiar objects becoming foreign. Then every light in my apartment turned on at once, bright, painfully bright, then off, then on, then off, flickering rapidly like a strobe, like something was testing the switches, learning what they controlled. I ran back outside, door slamming behind me. Stood on the walkway in front of my building, breathing hard. The streetlight in front of my apartment stayed dark. But the others, up and down Oak Street, they were flickering now too. Not going fully dark, just pulsing. Dimming and brightening in sequence. 1 flash, 2 flashes, 3 flashes, like something counting. A car turned onto Oak Street. Its headlights swept across me as it drove past. The driver looked straight ahead, didn't slow down. For them, everything was probably normal. Just another night. But I could see it. The pattern in the flickering lights. The rhythm that matched my footsteps, my pace, my route. It had followed me home anyway. Different path didn't matter. The route wasn't the point. I was the point. Sunday, I didn't leave my apartment. Called in sick again. Knew I was pushing it. Knew my supervisor would start asking questions, didn't care. Ordered food delivery, left a note asking them to leave it at the door, stayed inside with every light on, curtains closed. Around 11:15 p.m., all the lights in my apartment went out. Not flickering this time, just off, complete darkness. I grabbed my phone, pulled up the flashlight, but the battery was at 80% and dropping. 70, 60, draining impossibly fast. The darkness lasted exactly 15 minutes, the length of my usual walk. Then the lights came back on. My phone battery was at 12%. I plugged it in with shaking hands and sat on my couch, staring at nothing. It knew where I lived, knew my schedule down to the minute, and it didn't need me to walk the route anymore. It could follow the path by itself, through time, through space, arriving at my door whether I was out there or not. Monday morning, I started looking at apartments in other neighborhoods, other parts of the city, maybe even other cities. Breaking the route hadn't worked, but breaking the location might. But that night, I had to go to work. Had to walk home afterward. Couldn't just hide forever. I took the new route again, Commercial to Pine to Cedar, but I knew it wouldn't matter. This thing, whatever it was, had mapped my connection to this place. My apartment was the destination. Everything else was just the journey. When I got home, the streetlight in front of my building was already dark. I stood there, key in hand, staring at my front door. 50 feet away. Safety and shelter and all my belongings. But to get there, I had to walk through the darkness. The rational part of my brain said it was fine. It was just a broken streetlight. Nothing in the dark but air and empty space. The rest of me knew better. I took one step toward my door. The darkness seemed to thicken. Not just absence of light, something more. Something with presence. The air felt heavier, colder. Sound was muffled like I was underwater. Another step. The darkness expanded, spreading down the walkway toward me, oozing like liquid shadow. I could see my apartment door, could see the light seeping under it from inside. 20 feet away, might as well have been a mile. Behind me, a car drove down Oak Street. Normal engine sounds, normal tire noise. The world still existed out there, functioning and ordinary. But here, in this expanding pool of darkness between me and my home, something else existed. I took another step. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Text from my mom. Haven't heard from you this week. You okay? The screen light was comforting for half a second. Then the brightness dimmed, pulled down like something was draining it. Battery at 63%, dropping. I typed fast, I'm fine. Call you tomorrow. 55%. Another step toward my door. The darkness was all around me now, pressing in from the sides. I couldn't see the streetlights anymore. Couldn't see the other apartment buildings. Just my door ahead, light underneath it, and darkness everywhere else. My shadow stretched wrong on the ground. Too long, too thin, reaching toward my door like it was trying to get there first. 40% battery. I started walking faster, 10 feet from my door, 5 feet. The light under my door went out. I stopped, hand outstretched, key ready. Total darkness now. Couldn't see my own hand in front of my face, but I knew this walkway. Walked it every day for 4 months. I knew where the door was, knew the exact number of steps. I took them in the dark, hand extended until my fingers touched wood. Found the lock by feel, shoved the key in, turned it. The door opened and light poured out from my apartment. I'd left all the lights on, always did now. I stumbled inside, slammed the door, locked it, stood there breathing hard, back pressed against the door. Through the peephole, I could see the walkway outside. The streetlight in front of my building came back on. Orange glow illuminating empty concrete, normal, ordinary, like nothing had happened. I slid down to sit on the floor, phone in my hand. 21% battery. A new text from my mom. Okay, sweetie. Love you. I couldn't text back. Couldn't tell her I was thinking about breaking my lease, coming home, admitting I couldn't handle living alone in the city. Couldn't tell her that something was living in the darkness outside my apartment, and I had no idea how to make it stop. I sat there until the adrenaline wore off, until my hands stopped shaking, until I could stand up again. Then I went to my laptop and started searching for answers I knew I wouldn't find. Darkness that follows people. Entity in streetlights. Shadow that learns patterns. Nothing but horror fiction and conspiracy theories. I was completely, utterly alone with this, and tomorrow night I'd have to walk home again. Tuesday night, I decided to confront it, not because I was brave, because I was tired. Tired of being afraid, tired of the not knowing, tired of living in an apartment where the lights flickered at 11:15 every night whether I was home or not. I went to work, took my calls, processed my claims, told my co-workers I was fine when they asked why I looked so exhausted. When my shift ended, I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat for 10 minutes, keys in my lap, trying to decide. I could drive home, different route, arrive at a different time, break every pattern, or I could walk the original path, Oak Street. The route I'd taken every night for 4 months before this started, face whatever was waiting there and maybe, understand it. I chose to walk. Started down Commercial Street at 11:15 p.m. exactly, left on Maple. The corner where Oak Street began was ahead, streetlight glowing orange and normal. I pulled out my phone, made sure it was fully charged, set it to record video. If something happened, I wanted proof, evidence that I wasn't losing my mind. Turned onto Oak Street. The streetlight went dark immediately. I stopped walking but kept recording, pointed my phone at the dark space above where the light should be, where the fixture hung from its metal arm. The video showed nothing at first, just darkness, absence of light where light should exist. Then I noticed something in the frame. The darkness had texture, not smooth, not empty. There was depth to it, movement, like oil floating on water, catching light from somewhere else, somewhere I couldn't see. My battery indicator dropped from 100% to 87%. I took a step closer, phone held higher. The darkness began descending. Slowly at first, then faster, rolling down from the streetlight fixture like fog, like liquid, like something with weight and substance. It touched the pavement and spread outward, reaching toward me. I backed up, hit something solid behind me, the telephone pole on the corner. Trapped. The darkness spread faster now, covering the ground, flowing around parked cars, consuming the sidewalk, coming from all directions, not just from the dead streetlight, but from everywhere, like it had been waiting in every shadow, every unlit corner. My phone screen showed 71% battery, then 58%, dropping every second. The darkness touched my shoes, cold, so cold it burned. I looked up from my phone. The streetlights ahead of me were still on, but they seemed impossibly far away now. My apartment building, 50 yards down the street, looked like it was miles distant, separated from me by this expanding void. I couldn't see the telephone pole behind me anymore. Couldn't see the parked cars. Couldn't see anything except my phone's dying light and the darkness pressing in. My phone showed 34% battery. The video was still recording, but I didn't know what it was capturing. Couldn't see the screen clearly anymore. Everything was blurring, distorting. I tried to call 911. No signal. Tried to run. Couldn't tell which direction was forward. The darkness wasn't just visual anymore. It was disorienting, gravity wrong, like being underwater or in free fall, or lost in a place that had no up or down. I closed my eyes, forced myself to breathe. This is Oak Street. I know Oak Street. Walked it 100 times. My apartment is straight ahead, 50 yards. Counted my steps before. 83 steps from the corner to my door. I know this path. I opened my eyes, still darkness. But I could feel pavement under my feet. Real, solid ground. I took a step forward. Another. Counting in my head. 1, 2, 3. My phone went completely dark, dead battery, no light at all now. But I kept walking, kept counting. 10, 11, 12. The darkness pressed closer. I could feel it against my skin like cold breath, like static electricity, like something aware and watching. 20, 21, 22. I stumbled, caught myself, kept walking. This is my street. I know this street. 30, 31. Something brushed against my arm. Not solid, not physical, but there. Present. Examining me. 40. I wanted to run, wanted to scream, but I kept my pace steady, kept counting. 50, 60, almost there. The darkness began to recede, not quickly, grudgingly, like it didn't want to let go but had no choice. 70, 75. I could see something ahead, faint, orange glow bleeding through the void. 80. The streetlight in front of my apartment building flickered on. 81, 82, 83. I was standing in front of my door. The darkness was gone. All the streetlights on Oak Street were functioning normally. Cars parked where they should be. Telephone pole visible at the corner. Everything exactly as it was supposed to look. I stood there shaking, phone dead and useless in my hand, staring at my front door. Pulled out my keys with trembling fingers, unlocked the door, stepped inside. Every light in my apartment was on, bright and normal and safe. I locked the door behind me, all 3 locks, slid the chain, stood there breathing hard, back pressed against the door, waiting for my heart to stop racing. Through the peephole, Oak Street looked normal. Quiet, suburban night, streetlights glowing steadily. I plugged my phone in, waited for it to turn on. 30 seconds, a minute. When the screen finally lit up, I checked the video I'd recorded. 3 minutes and 47 seconds of footage. I pressed play. The video showed me walking down Oak Street. Normal streetlights, normal pavement. My hand visible in frame occasionally as I adjusted the angle. No darkness, no spreading void, no entity, just me walking down a well-lit street at night. Phone battery indicator dropping normally from 100% to 23% over the course of the video. Nothing unusual, nothing unexplainable, just faulty perception, just my mind playing tricks, just a woman having some kind of episode on an ordinary Tuesday night, except my shoes were covered in frost. And when I checked my phone's metadata, the video timestamp was wrong. It showed 11:54 p.m. for the end time. But I'd started recording at 11:15, 39 minutes missing, for a walk that should have taken 3. I sat on my couch until dawn, lights on, curtains closed, phone charging beside me. At 6 a.m., I composed an email to my landlord, notice of intent to break lease. At 7 a.m., I emailed my supervisor, resignation effective immediately, personal emergency. At 8 a.m., I called my mom. I'm coming home. She asked questions I couldn't answer, said she'd make up my old room, asked when I'd arrive, told me she loved me. I started packing. 2 weeks. That's how long I had to clear out before the lease break fee kicked in higher. 2 weeks to get everything into my car and leave this city, this apartment, this street. 2 weeks of not walking home at 11:15 p.m. I could do that. I had to do that. Because whatever was in the darkness, whatever had been watching me, learning me, following my routine, it knew where I lived now. It had examined me in that void between the lights, measured me, memorized me, and I wasn't going to give it another chance. I moved out on November 15th, 2 weeks exactly. Spent those 14 days packing during daylight hours, ordering everything I needed online so I wouldn't have to leave. Food delivery, boxes from Amazon, packing tape, markers. My credit card took a beating, but I didn't care. My parents didn't understand the urgency. You can take your time, honey. We're not going anywhere. But I was, as fast as possible. I didn't walk anywhere after that Tuesday night, when I absolutely had to leave, to load my car, to turn in my apartment keys. I did it during the day. Bright afternoon sun, no shadows long enough to hide anything. The streetlights functioned normally those 2 weeks. I watched them from my window every evening as they clicked on at dusk. Steady orange glow, no flickering, no patterns. Like the whole thing had never happened. But I knew better. My landlord accepted my lease break without much pushback. I lost my deposit and paid an extra month's rent as penalty. Worth it. My supervisor at the call center seemed more annoyed than concerned when I didn't work my 2 weeks' notice. Very unprofessional, Jess. I didn't care about professional. I cared about leaving. The day I drove away, I didn't look back at the apartment building. Didn't take a final walk down Oak Street. Just loaded the last box into my car, handed over my keys, and left. 300 miles south to my hometown, 6-hour drive. I made it in 5.5. My old bedroom was exactly how I'd left it when I moved out for college 6 years ago. Posters on the walls, twin bed with the same comforter, bookshelf full of high school yearbooks and participation trophies. It felt like going backward, felt like failure, but it felt safe. My mom made my favorite dinner that first night. Dad asked gentle questions about the job, about what happened, about my plans. I gave vague answers about the city not being the right fit, about needing to be closer to family. They didn't push. They were just glad I was home. Emma, home from college for Thanksgiving break, gave me a long look across the dinner table. You look like you haven't slept in a month. Thanks. I'm serious. What happened up there? Nothing. Just wasn't working out. She didn't believe me, but she let it drop. That first week home, I barely left my room, slept during the day, stayed awake at night, old habits from the call center job still running my schedule. I'd stand at my bedroom window around 11:15 p.m. and watch the streetlight outside my parents' house, waiting for it to flicker. It never did. The streetlight on this street had been there for 20 years. Same fixture, same bulb, same steady orange glow illuminating the same patch of pavement night after night. Reliable, constant, normal. After 2 weeks, I started sleeping at night again, started eating breakfast with my parents, started looking at job postings in town, administrative assistant positions, retail management, anything that wasn't customer service on a headset. Started feeling like maybe I'd actually escaped. A month after I moved home, I was walking back from the corner store. Early December, getting dark around 5 p.m. The route took me past 4 streetlights between the store and my parents' house. The second one flickered as I passed. My heart stopped. I froze on the sidewalk, staring up at the light. It flickered again, then steadied. Normal bulb behavior. Old fixture with loose wiring, probably. Just a coincidence. I kept walking. The third streetlight stayed on as I passed. The fourth, too. I made it home without incident. Let myself inside. Locked the door even though it was only 5:30 p.m. "You okay?" Mom asked from the kitchen. "Fine. Just cold." That night, I lay in bed and tried to convince myself it was nothing. Different city, different lights, different grid, no pattern, no entity, no darkness learning my new route. Just an old bulb and my paranoid brain making connections that didn't exist. But I knew I'd be watching that streetlight tomorrow night, and the night after, and every night after that. It's been 3 months now since I moved home. I'm working at the library downtown, part-time, flexible hours, decent enough pay. I still live with my parents, still have my old bedroom with the high school posters. I take different routes everywhere I go. Never walk the same path twice in a row. Never establish a routine. If I go to the grocery store at 3 p.m. on Monday, I go at 9 a.m. on Wednesday. Coffee shop Tuesday morning, skip it completely Thursday. No patterns, no predictability. The street light outside my parents' house has flickered 3 more times when I've walked past it. Could be coincidence, could be old wiring, could be. I'm just noticing things I would have ignored before, seeing patterns in random events because I'm primed to look for them. Or it could be following me, learning my new city, my new routes, my new life. I don't know which is true, can't know, but I'm not taking chances. Sometimes at night, late, when everyone else is asleep, I stand at my bedroom window and watch the streetlights on my street. all of them glowing steady and normal. The same lights that have been there for decades, illuminating the same quiet suburban street where I grew up. I tell myself I'm safe here, that whatever was in Bellingham stayed in Bellingham, that I escaped. Most nights I believe it, but some nights, when a light flickers, or when a shadow falls wrong, or when the darkness between streetlights seems just a little bit thicker than it should be, I remember that feeling, being lost in the void on a street I knew by heart, counting steps I couldn't see, the cold presence examining me, and I wonder if you can really escape something that knows you that well, something that learned your patterns, your routes, your timing, something that watched you night after night, learning what it meant to be you. I still walk at night sometimes. Can't help it. Old habits die hard. But I never walk the same route twice. Never establish a pattern. Never let myself become predictable. Because some things hunt by pattern, by routine, by the comfort of knowing where you'll be and when you'll be there. And the best way to stay invisible is to never be where you're expected to be. Rain taps against my window tonight, gentle and rhythmic. The streetlight outside my parents' house glows steady and warm, illuminating the same patch of pavement it has for 20 years. I watch it for a long time before closing the curtains. Some lights you can trust, some lights stay where they're supposed to be, and some are better left in the darkness where they belong. I don't know which kind that streetlight in Bellingham was, but I'm not going back to find out. Story 5. The door behind the mirror. I've been a real estate agent for 12 years, seen hundreds of apartments, walked through thousands of rooms, learned to spot problems most people miss. Foundation cracks, water damage, electrical issues that aren't up to code. You develop an eye for it after a while, an instinct for when something's wrong with a property. So when I found the apartment on Ashland Street, I thought I knew exactly what I was getting. My name's Rachel. I'm 38. Recently divorced, and in the market for something smaller than the house I'd shared with my ex-husband. Something affordable, manageable, mine. The divorce had been expensive in every way that counted, and I was downsizing out of necessity as much as choice. The apartment was in an older building, pre-war construction from the 1930s. 12 units, solid brick. The kind of place that had good bones, even if the fixtures were outdated. I'd shown properties in buildings like this dozens of times, knew what to look for, what questions to ask. Second floor, 1 bedroom, original hardwood floors and crown molding. The kind of details you can't get in newer construction. Rent was below market rate, which should have been a red flag, but the landlord explained it away easily enough. Been vacant a few months, just want someone reliable in there. I walked through with my professional eye engaged, checked the windows for drafts, the walls for moisture, the outlets for proper grounding. Everything seemed solid. A few quirks. The radiator clanked when it heated up. One of the floorboards in the bedroom creaked badly, but nothing unusual for a building this age. The bathroom still had its original fixtures. Hex tile on the floor, pedestal sink, clawfoot tub. A large mirror over the sink, framed in dark wood that matched the door trim. Medicine cabinet, I assumed, though I didn't open it during the walkthrough. The whole space had that vintage charm people paid extra for these days. "I'll take it," I told the landlord. He seemed pleased, maybe relieved. Had me sign the lease that afternoon. I moved in the first week of October, my few remaining possessions looking sparse in the space. The divorce had split everything down the middle, and I'd let Michael keep most of the furniture. Easier that way. Fresh start. Those first weeks felt good. Better than good, actually. The apartment was quiet, private, mine in a way that the house had never been. I'd run a hot bath on October evenings and listen to rain against the window while steam fogged the mirror. Simple routine, simple life. Exactly what I needed. My mom called most nights to check in, worried about me living alone after 15 years of marriage. "You're sure you're okay? The neighborhood's safe?" "It's fine, Mom. Better than fine. I like having my own space." "You'll tell me if you need anything." "I promise." I was sleeping well for the first time in months. No more lying awake listening to Michael snore. No more tiptoeing around someone else's schedule. Just me, my space, my rules. The apartment felt like a safe haven. Work was busy that October. Fall market always picked up. People wanting to close before the holidays. I'd show properties during the day, come home exhausted, grateful for the quiet. The apartment never felt lonely, just peaceful. I noticed small things about the place as I settled in. The way the bathroom radiator had its own particular rhythm of clanks and hisses. How the bedroom got afternoon light that made the hardwood glow. Which floorboards creaked and which stayed silent. You learn a space by living in it, become attuned to its sounds and quirks. 3 weeks in, I noticed the draft coming from the bathroom mirror. Not around it, through it. It happened on a Tuesday morning. I was getting ready for work, standing at the bathroom sink doing my makeup. The mirror was fogged from my shower, and I felt cold air on my face. Not a subtle draft, distinct, direct, like someone had opened a window behind the glass. I wiped the condensation away, checked the edges of the mirror frame, sealed tight to the wall, no visible gaps, touched the mirror surface itself. Cold, much colder than it should be, even with the bathroom warm and humid from the shower. Pressed my palm flat against the glass. It was like touching a window in winter, that deep chill that goes through your skin. Old building, I muttered. Probably drafty pipes behind the wall. I made a mental note to mention it to the building super next time I saw him, then promptly forgot about it. Had 3 showings that day, a closing to prep for, too much on my mind to worry about a cold bathroom mirror. But the next morning, the draft was there again. And the morning after that. Always strongest when the bathroom was warm, when the contrast between the steamy air and that cold current from the mirror was most noticeable. My breath would fog when I stood close to it, even with the heat running and the room filled with shower steam. I started checking other mirrors in the apartment. The one in the bedroom, the decorative one in the hallway. All normal temperature, warm to the touch, reflecting heat instead of cold. Just the bathroom mirror. Just that one piece of glass. A week after I first noticed the draft, I heard the tapping. I was in bed, almost asleep, when the sound pulled me back to consciousness. 3 distinct taps, a pause, then 3 more. Coming from the bathroom, from the wall behind the sink. Pipes, I thought, rolling over. Old buildings, old plumbing, thermal expansion, making metal knock against wood. I'd heard it 1,000 times in properties I'd shown. But the next night, the tapping came again. Same rhythm. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. Deliberate, measured, like someone was trying to send a message. I got up, walked to the bathroom, flipped on the light. The tapping stopped immediately. Stood there listening to silence, feeling foolish. Went back to bed. 3rd night, same thing. 4th night, 5th night, always around 2 a.m. Always that same pattern. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. During the day, I started paying attention to the bathroom in ways I hadn't before, really looking at it with my professional eye, the one that assessed properties for structural issues. The mirror wasn't a medicine cabinet. That realization came slowly. Most mirrors this size over bathroom sinks open to reveal storage shelves. But this one was solid, mounted flush to the wall, the frame purely decorative. I ran my hands along the edges, feeling the texture of the wood, the way it met the wall. The frame was thick, substantial, attached with screws I could feel under layers of paint. Why would you mount a solid mirror with such heavy hardware? Why not just hang it on picture hooks or install a proper medicine cabinet? Unless it was covering something that needed to stay covered. The thought came unbidden, unsettling. I pushed it away, but it lingered. That weekend, I did what I always did when I had questions about a property. I pulled the building records. Had access through work, could look up original blueprints, construction documents, renovation permits. The building was built in 1934. 12 units, standard layout for the era. I found the floor plan, traced my finger to the second floor, to apartment 2B. There. My bathroom should share a wall with the hallway, but the blueprints showed space, roughly 3 feet of unaccounted area between the bathroom wall and the hallway wall. Dead space that served no structural purpose I could identify. I measured the bathroom that night, from the mirror wall to the door, 8 feet. From the hallway wall outside to the apartment door, 11 feet. 3 feet unaccounted for, 3 feet of nothing, according to the layout I could see. But according to the original blueprints, that space had always been there. Not a renovation, not a mistake in construction. Intentionally built into the design. I mentioned it to the building super the next time I saw him. Tried to sound casual. Hey, the bathroom in 2B. There's extra space behind the wall, like a sealed-off storage area. He frowned, thinking. Oh yeah, some of the old layouts got changed over the years. Renovations and stuff. Why, you got a leak? No leak, just curious. The blueprints show space there. Probably just the way they framed things back then. Different building codes. He shrugged, uninterested. But I couldn't let it go. The blueprints were original, dated 1934. The space had been there from the beginning, built in deliberately. And now it was sealed behind my bathroom mirror, breathing cold air and tapping in the night. I started researching the building's history, found old newspaper archives, city records, whatever I could dig up about this address. Not much came up. Standard Depression-era construction, nothing remarkable. A few of the original tenants were listed in the 1930s census records. I recognized my apartment number, 2B, occupied in 1934 by a woman named Helen Marsh. Nothing unusual, no record of deaths, crimes, accidents. Just normal people living normal lives 90 years ago. But the tapping continued. Every night now, not just occasionally. That same pattern, those same 3 beats, repeated endlessly. And it wasn't just at night anymore. I'd hear it during the day too, while getting ready for work, while brushing my teeth before bed. Always from behind the mirror. Always that hollow, distant sound, like knuckles on wood from the other side of a sealed door. I put my ear against the mirror one evening, listening. The glass was so cold it hurt, but I could hear it more clearly this way. The tapping wasn't random settling, wasn't pipes or building sounds. It was deliberate, intentional. Someone or something was tapping out that rhythm over and over, like a signal, like a call for help. My breath fogged the mirror, obscuring my reflection. And in that moment, with my ear pressed to the cold glass, I felt something I hadn't felt before. Air moving. Not just the draft. Actual air pressure like something on the other side was breathing. In, out, a rhythm separate from the tapping. Slower, deeper, the breathing of a space that had been sealed for decades but somehow wasn't empty. I stepped back, stared at my reflection in the mirror, at the dark wood frame surrounding it, at the way the whole thing was mounted so permanently to the wall. The frame wasn't decorative, it was functional. It was hiding something, and whatever was behind it wanted out. That night, lying in bed, I heard the tapping again. Louder now, more insistent. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Over and over, relentless. I got up, stood in the bathroom doorway, staring at the mirror in the darkness. "What do you want?" I whispered. The tapping stopped. Silence stretched out, heavy and waiting. Then, slowly, 3 more taps. Softer this time, almost gentle, not aggressive, not threatening, pleading. I knew then what I had to do, what I'd been avoiding since the moment I first felt that cold draft, since I realized the space behind the mirror shouldn't exist. I had to take the mirror down, had to see what was behind it, had to open whatever door had been sealed 90 years ago and never meant to be opened again. I went to the hardware store the next morning, told myself I was being rational, methodical, just investigating a structural oddity, satisfying professional curiosity, nothing more. Bought a screwdriver set, a good flashlight, work gloves. The cashier made small talk about home improvement projects. I nodded, smiled, didn't mention I was about to pry a mirror off a wall because something behind it was tapping. That evening, I stood in my bathroom with the tools laid out on the sink. The mirror stared back at me, dark wood frame gleaming dully in the overhead light. I could see my reflection, hair pulled back, jaw set, the determined expression I wore when dealing with difficult clients. I looked nervous, was nervous. "It's just a wall," I said out loud. "Just old construction, nothing to be afraid of." But my hands shook as I picked up the screwdriver. The frame was attached with screws, 8 of them, 2 on each side. They'd been painted over multiple times, layers of white and cream and pale yellow tracking decades of redecorating. I had to chip the paint away first, careful not to damage the surrounding wall. 20 minutes to get the first screw loose. The whole time, I felt that cold air on my face, stronger than ever. My breath clouded. The bathroom was warm, radiator clanking away, steam from earlier still clinging to the walls. But standing at that mirror was like standing in front of an open freezer. Second screw came easier. Third, fourth. My hands were numb with cold by the time I got to the 5th. The tapping started. I froze, screwdriver halfway through loosening the 6th screw. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps, right behind the mirror. Close enough that I could feel the vibration through the wall, through the frame, through the screwdriver in my hand. "I hear you," I whispered. "I'm trying to. Just give me a minute." The tapping stopped. The silence that followed was worse. I finished removing the screws, all 8, placed carefully on the sink so I wouldn't lose them. The mirror was heavy, solid wood frame and thick glass, probably 40 pounds. I'd need to lift it carefully, make sure not to drop it. Gripped the sides of the frame, took a breath, pulled. The mirror came away from the wall with a sound like tearing paper. Adhesive, maybe, or old caulk that had been sealing the edges. I wrestled it down, leaned it carefully against the bathtub. Behind where the mirror had been, a door frame, not modern, original to the building, same vintage wood as the rest of the trim, same craftsmanship. Someone had cut directly into the wall, framed it properly, created an opening into that impossible space the blueprints had shown. But there was no door. Just plaster, old and yellowed, sealing the opening shut. And from behind the plaster, cold. Not draft cold, not winter cold. This was deeper, older. The cold of places that hadn't seen light or warmth in decades. The cold of sealed tombs. I stood there staring at it. My professional brain tried to make sense of it. Sealed doorway, probably for structural reasons, maybe unsafe space behind it. Nothing unusual about sealing off parts of old buildings during renovations. But this wasn't a renovation. The door frame was original, and it had been sealed from the beginning, from the moment the building was finished in 1934. Someone had built a door and immediately sealed it. Why? I picked up the screwdriver, touched the plaster. Old, brittle, it flaked away under pressure. "This is stupid," I said. "This is really, really stupid." But I pressed harder, chipped away at the plaster. It came off in chunks, revealing darkness beyond. A gap, then a hole big enough to shine my flashlight through. The beam cut into blackness. I leaned closer, peering through the opening. A room. Small, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet. Original wallpaper, a pattern of faded flowers, water-stained and peeling. Wooden floorboards, same as the rest of the apartment. And furniture, a chair, a small table, as if someone had been living in there. My breath clouded in the frigid air pouring through the hole. The temperature in the bathroom was dropping fast, the cold spilling out like water from a broken dam. I chipped away more plaster, made the hole bigger, large enough to lean through to get a better view. The flashlight beam swept across the space. On the far wall, hanging from hooks, clothes. Women's clothes from the 1930s. A dress, a coat, shoes arranged neatly on the floor below them, all covered in a thin layer of frost. On the table, papers. Letters, I realized. A stack of them, yellowed with age, edges crisp with cold. And that's when I heard it again. Not tapping this time. Breathing. Slow, shallow, the whisper of air moving in and out, coming from inside that sealed room. Impossible. Nothing could be alive in there. Nothing could have survived 90 years sealed in darkness and cold. But I heard it, felt it. The space was breathing, had been breathing all along, had been calling to me through the mirror, trying to tell me it was there. I stumbled back. My hand slipped, knocked against the plaster, sent a chunk crashing to the bathroom floor. The breathing stopped. Silence. Complete, total silence. Then movement. In the darkness beyond the doorway, something shifted. A shadow, a shape I couldn't tell. The flashlight beam wasn't strong enough to illuminate the far corners. But something in that room was aware of me. Had been aware of me since I moved in. Had been tapping, trying to get my attention, trying to communicate the only way it could. And now that I'd opened the door, now that I'd broken the seal, 3 taps echoed from inside the room. Not against the wall this time, against the floor. Heavy, deliberate, like footsteps. 3 steps closer to the opening. I grabbed my phone from the sink, hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. Dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's a room in my apartment, a hidden room. I think someone... My voice broke. I don't know. I think someone might have died in there. Ma'am, are you in danger right now? Was I? I looked at the opening, at the darkness beyond, at the cold pouring out like it had been waiting decades to escape. I don't know, I whispered. I really don't know. Stay on the line. I'm sending officers to your location. I backed out of the bathroom, stood in the hallway, phone clutched in my hand, staring at that dark opening where my mirror used to be. The breathing started again, louder now, like whatever was in there was finally free to breathe properly after 90 years of being sealed away. And in the darkness, barely visible in the spill of light from the bathroom, I saw something move. Not a shadow, not my imagination. A figure, standing just inside the doorway, watching me, waiting. The police arrived fast. 2 officers and the building super, still buttoning his coat against the rain. They stepped into my apartment with that calm, efficient energy people get when they think the problem is going to be simple. It wasn't. The super swore softly when he saw the hole. Jesus, Rachel, you did this yourself? I had to, I said. My voice sounded small even to me. There was something behind it. One officer crouched, shining his flashlight into the dark. We'll need to open this up more. The other started a quiet report into his radio. I stood back, arms around myself, feeling the cold still pouring from the hole like steady breath. They chipped away more plaster until the opening was wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The beam from the flashlight cut across the tiny room I'd glimpsed earlier. The table, the chair, the dress still hanging like someone meant to come back for it. And on the table, just as I'd seen, letters. The officer reached in, careful, and pulled the top one free. The paper cracked with frost. He read only a few words before looking up at me. It's signed Helen Marsh. You said you saw that name in the records? I nodded. They cleared more debris. The super kept muttering that he'd never seen anything like it in 35 years. There was no body, just the room itself, perfectly sealed, perfectly preserved. A teacup frozen to the table, a folded blanket on the chair, no window, no vent. No way anyone could have survived in there. The officers took the letters for evidence, promised to file a report, said someone from Historical Services might want to look. They left the opening covered with plastic sheeting until maintenance could patch it. By the time they were gone, it was after 2 a.m. The apartment was warmer again, but the air still felt thin, as if something had exhaled for the first time in a century. I barely slept. Every sound felt amplified. The radiator, the wind, the rain whispering against the glass. But the tapping never came. The next week was a blur of calls and paperwork. The building was buzzing with rumors, a hidden room, old letters, the ghost in 2B. The super had the wall repaired, new plaster, new paint, new mirror installed. This one, smaller, modern, frameless, no draft. Sometimes I'd stand in the bathroom at night, brushing my teeth, staring at that new mirror. It reflected everything perfectly. Light, movement, me. But sometimes, when the heat clicked on and the radiator hissed, I'd feel the faintest temperature drop, just enough to fog my breath. A few days after the repairs were finished, an envelope appeared under my door. No return address, just my name written in shaky ink. Inside was one of the old letters, the last one they'd found. October 17th, 1934. If anyone finds this, please know I didn't mean to be forgotten. I can hear you moving beyond the wall. Please, just knock. I read it 3 times before folding it carefully back into the envelope. That night, as the rain started again, I sat in bed with the letter on my nightstand. At 11 o'clock, right on schedule, I thought I heard it. 3 faint taps, far away, muffled through layers of plaster. I didn't move, didn't speak, just listened as the rain grew louder, washing the sound away until there was nothing left but quiet. The mirror stayed cold for the rest of the night.